All right, good afternoon, everyone. We are going to resume our council session regarding the FY23 operating budget and CIP. We move on to item number 3 from our agenda today, and that is the Department of Housing and Community Affairs. I'll note just a couple of housekeeping items. Is Council Vice President Glass and Councilmember Rice will not be able to join us this afternoon. We are expecting other colleagues to be joining virtually. So with that, I will turn it over to the chair of our Planning, Housing, and Economic Development Committee, Chairman Raymer, to walk us through this packet.
Thank you, Mr. Council President. All right, great. We're going to proceed through a number of housing-related items. The first is quite easy, which is the operating budget for Dhca. And I'll turn it to staff, but there were only the most minor of changes on this specific item. So, Naeem.
Sure. As Chair Reamer noted, the committee recommended to approve the county executive's budget, as well as made a slight modification. They voted to add to the reconciliation list 2 tranches for inflationary adjustments. Each tranche is about a little less than $10,000. The first one takes it to 8% instead of 6%, and the second tranche brings it to 10%.
So this is for the department's operating budget. I know Director Nagam is traveling at this time. Mr. Desmarais, would you like to share anything with us at this time?
I think in the package it reflects the recommendation we've had with some adjustments that we're comfortable with. So.
Okay. I mean, there's a lot here, of course.
Right.
There's all of the inspections, and there's everything. That's a big item. So,
okay.
Having said that, this is we've recommended approval of the budget with those tiny little adjustments. So, okay, that's that easy item. The rest of them are easy too, but they're more meaningful.
Right. And I just want to note the operating budget. The executive is proposing to add 3 positions, one of which is supporting the landlord-tenant mediation program, as well as 2 positions to support the Common Ownership Communities program. So these will support those efforts.
That's important. We're hearing our Common Ownership Communities program is really important. It's one of the things that this county does that a lot of local governments don't do. We have a huge share of our housing is in common ownership communities, and Dhca has taken over this program area over the last 4 or 5 years. The council has created a lot of change in how this is run, and our CCOCC has brought us a lot of recommendations that we have acted upon, and we have a much changed program today than we had 4 or 5 years ago. It's a lot better. It's not done. We've still got growing to do. So Dhca has asked for some additional staff here, and we know those are needed. Just as a side note, I've heard recently from a common ownership community that had a election that has been contested, and none of their board members have been seated, and they've been waiting for a year for a resolution to this dispute. And I think we need Dhca to get under the hood there and help resolve that particular dispute. I'll send you some more information about that, but. Frank, anything you'd like to share here?
A couple of things on the CCOC. The recommended positions reflect adding a manager to function in the department. We've been operating with staff without a managerial oversight position, which has been benefiting from extraordinary volunteer support from the commission. We have an extraordinary commission, puts in a lot of time and effort, and at this point we've recognized that for operating controls and sustainability, that we need to maintain a management dedicated position together with an additional investigator to handle the workload. We do have, starting July, all of the associations in Gaithersburg are joining the CCOC under Chapter 10B. We had Rockville associations join us a number of years ago. So the county, the workload and the support is structured around these positions. The issue just spoken to is part of the work that the commission handles, supporting the members and the associations, navigating their bylaws and requirements, and they go through an adjudicatory process. And the case I believe you're speaking to, it's been handled a number of times, and we're continuing working for resolution.
Thank you. Again, yeah, appreciation for the CCOCC. The volunteer leaders of that initiative are, they're doing really important work, and we can't just have them performing the work of staff. So, as you said, these are important recommendations. And I guess I'd heard about Gaithersburg coming in. Is the city contributing towards the cost of these positions for that, or?
All of the positions in our CCOC and all of our operating expenses are covered by the
Covered by the
per
charges
unit
of
fee.
the
So these
fee.
are fee supported.
So
In the
these-
package, you'll see that
These positions are also funded by the licensing fees.
licensing fees.
Yeah.
But specifically, the common ownership communities pay a per unit annual fee
Okay.
that funds all of these activities. And in the packet, you'll see that we are increasing, starting with associations that come on in January of 2023, increasing the fee. The Gaithersburg associations are joining us under an arrangement where we guaranteed that we would not raise their fee for 3 years. So
3
it'll be
years.
on a delayed increase component.
Got it.
But,
Okay, there we go. So, committee recommendation is before us.
I see no questions or comments. All those in favor of the committee recommendation, please raise your hands. And that is unanimous among all those present.
Great. Now we'll move to the Housing Opportunities Commission, and I don't know if anyone from HOC is here. Ms. Brown. Ask you to join us. See Tim. All right. So, well, are there operational issues that we should go through, or shall we just dive right into the production fund?
I think, yeah, so the committee's concurring with the executive's recommendation on the operating budget contribution,
Okay.
but we can dive right into the HPF and talk
Okay.
more about that.
All right, great. Well, the committee has recommended that we create a second tranche of funding for the Housing Opportunities Commission to build housing. And we got an amazing presentation. And if I could just borrow this, Councilmember Hucker, I don't know if this was passed out. It was, okay. I think it would be, if possible, can we go through it really briefly? You have a copy in front of you, Ms. Brown, but I think it would be worthwhile for you to just give us the highlights of the production fund and what you think you'll be able to do with the second tranche. Councilmember Friedson is going to make a motion on how we can fund this initiative. But the bottom line here is HOC has several years ago presented to us an idea for how they can scale up their work and how the county can help create more affordable housing by creating a revolving loan fund. And the council created a $50 million revolving loan fund that has been fully utilized. And there are projects that are already underway as a result of this loan fund. And our intent from the beginning was to see if we could make that a $100 million fund. And we wanted to create the first 50 and see how that went. And so now we have had a chance to see in action. It's been a stunning success. It's been getting national publicity in not only the housing sector, but even more broadly into publications that cover community issues. My old favorite, The American Prospect, wrote a story about it. It builds on an amazing panel we had that Linda McMillan organized a couple years ago about social housing, and we had a really wonderful discussion about the Viennese model for housing, which is to have mixed income housing where market rents support below market rents, and the building itself is self-sustaining. And HOC, that's their model that they embarked upon with the Lindley, which has won national acclaim. We supported that building there, and they're creating multiple new buildings that also follow that model. They recently broke ground on one in Shady Grove. They have plans to do the same in Bethesda, in places throughout the county. So what I thought was really striking about the presentation we got was that HOC is going to be able to make a meaningful contribution to our overall housing production goals. And when we look at the COG report and the amount of housing that we need to build here in the county in order for this county to meet goals around affordability and access to housing, HOC can meet a significant share of that. It can't do the whole thing by any stretch, but it can meet a significant share of that. And so this fund is intended for us not only to meet affordability goals, but just overall housing goals. So I'll turn it to you, Ms. Brown, and why don't you please share some background with us.
Certainly, and good afternoon, council members and council staff. For the record, my name is Kayreen Brown, Acting Executive Director of HOC. So the Housing Production Fund, as you've said, has been quite meaningful and impactful for HOC, and we're pleased to continue to talk about it with you, and are equally pleased, or even more so, that you're entertaining a second Housing Production Fund. The first fund of $50 million the bonds were issued last year in August when interest rates were at an all-time low. We were able to generate $50 million of proceeds at a 2.08 interest rate. And the first $14 million have been loaned to the Westside Shady Grove project, and the second loan will be made to the Hillendale Gateway development. The Shady Grove development will yield 268 housing units, of which 30% will be restricted to 50% in MPDU levels. And so that's the first success story that we can share with respect to the fund. And this is important as we compare it to, say, the Lindley, which we use private equity as subordinate financing for the construction. Subordinate financing, by comparison, at the Shady Grove transaction is 5%, because that's the interest rate charged on the Housing Production Fund loan. By comparison to Lindley, it was much higher in the double digits.
Double digits.
And so, yes. It's pretty clear that the Housing Production Fund, not only is it important as a model for creating affordable housing here in Montgomery County and elsewhere, but it can be repeated over and over. The concept behind the fund is that every 4 or 5 years it repeats itself, so that once the loans are paid back, we're able to take those repayments and put into the next deal, thereby allowing HOC to continue to produce more housing, more affordable housing, therefore contributing to our production goals over the 20-year life of the loan, but not only for the 20 years, but beyond that, because once the bonds are paid back, the loan proceeds continue to replicate and are available to be put back into more production. And so we shared with you, with the Fed committee, a pipeline of production starting in FY21 with the Westside Shady Grove transaction, and you may look at slide 3 of the presentation. And these are transactions outlined here for you, whereby the Housing Opportunities Commission, our board has already seen these transactions, have approved some action of sorts on them, and over the 20 all the way through FY28, you'll see that we expect to put this transaction into production. From where we are now, there will be funding gaps from not having enough of the Housing Production Fund that's in play right now to be able to fund these transactions. And so a second tranche will enable us to do much more. Not only will we be able to do much more with what's in the current pipeline, but there are other transactions that we can activate, and thereby expanding the production of affordable housing in general, and affordable housing throughout the county. So for us, it's really our ability to do a whole lot more and to accelerate and contribute to the COG housing goals that are set out for HOC. And if you go to slide 5, what we're trying to communicate to you here is that with the orange line, the bar charts that are there, HOC is already contributing to the.
Ours is, sadly, ours is in black and white, and
Oh,
it doesn't
sorry.
quite,
Could it just say
The
it's
lighter shade.
so
Oh, it's
you'll
a
have to
lighter
describe what is,
This lighter shade.
yeah,
Jumping in, by the way.
yes.
Yeah, so it's a lighter shade. So, well, it's in the first chart in the first chart that's there. We're not quite achieving the targets that COG has set out, but in the second chart, you'll see that over time, we can contribute significantly to it, and we intend to do that as long as this production fund is available, and it will be available. We can do more with the second tranche, is a point that we're trying to make there. And the rest of the presentation essentially tells the same story. By funding this, we are able to just continue to produce more housing and therefore more affordable housing. The rest of it really just gives a sense of what we've done. This idea isn't a guess as to what we can do. There are things in place to allow us to be able to produce the housing that we're talking about. And so from the first $50 million, the county approved a $3.4 million of appropriation each year, and we're already saving the county some money in that. We're able to borrow in the bond market at lower than expected interest rate, and so the net impact to the county is about $600,000. We expect that with the second tranche, we'll be able to save some money, and based on our current projections, we expect that the net cost to the county will be about $1.5 million. Obviously, rates are changing, and we hope that things will come back in line, and the savings that we're projecting can be realized as well.
So for $1.5 million in the second tranche expected, we can make a sizable dent in our COG housing goal
Yes,
program.
that's the idea.
That's a quite a return. Councilmember Katz wanted to ask a question.
Yeah. Have you, on the loans that you have given already, has there been any default at all on any of those that debt?
So thus far, we've made one loan. The bond financing closed last summer, and we financed one transaction so far. No default. We've built interest costs into the development budget for the transaction so that going in, we know that there's money set aside in the project's development budget to pay for it, and that's how we expect to underwrite every transaction that comes through. So unless something goes really, really badly with the development, which we're not expecting to happen, the transactions will pay the 5% interest for the duration of the construction.
I think it's a terrific program. I really do. But of course, nobody ever thinks something's going to go wrong, so you have to build that into the system. But I think it's very impressive. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, that's essentially at a high level the pitch for the Housing Production Fund and Housing Production Fund 2. Again, there is the pipeline with funding gaps along the way, but as I said, there are transactions that have not been activated yet by HOC because, one, we've not presented them to our board, and two, there's probably not enough resources currently. One of the things that's key about this program is our ability, HOC's ability at the end. We've got HOC's an FHA insured lender, and that is key because with HOC's ownership, which is also a key element to this program, we know what the end game is. And going into the transaction, they're underwritten such that there's a takeout. And that is essential for the transactions that we're going to be financing, and that makes it very viable. So the underwriting is key. The plan for the end of the 4 or 5 year hold period is essential, and all of that factors into it and makes it viable and successful. And so we think it's a great program, and obviously we support it, and we want your support as well. So thank you.
Fantastic. Well, we could go on into great depth about the unique model that you're building here. It deserves the acclaim that it's receiving. And it's something we're really proud of at the Fed Committee. We've been able to make some significant progress on a lot of really big housing issues over the last couple of years. And this is certainly one of the standout successes in addition to many others. So I will turn it back to you, Mr. Council President, to call on
Can we also just make a comment?
well, yes. And we weren't done discussing this.
Okay, that's fine. I can wait.
No, it's
Go ahead, Ms. Beck.
Oh, this one's a little bit strange only because it relates to the next item in terms of where the financial impact of this hits. So if we want to discuss that
that's
later.
what we're moving into now, is to talk about the financial impact.
Oh, okay. Do you want to take it or do you want me to comment now?
I think that, well, go ahead and share what you wanted to share. We're
okay.
going to talk about how to pay for it
Okay,
in
great.
a moment.
I think, again, we just wanted to point out, I think council remembers from the first deal, this debt acts like general obligation bond debt. It hits in the year that it comes. The way that it impacts, the specific budget that it tends to impact is the HIF funding. And in the packet, you'll see that there are lines specifically where you can see the debt service growing from about 12 million to well over like 28 million when you add these additional things in. There is a notion that the interest will come back to the HIF fund to help reduce the net cost. That's helpful, but I think probably we need to adjust the estimates. We've seen so far in the first deals, not all the money gets lent out immediately, and there'd be some downtime between deals. So it negatively impacts the amount of affordable housing deals typically that can be done by the HIF, or we have to raise taxes, raise the revenue, somehow deal with that. And again, this is all good stuff. It's just, are we okay with raising taxes if we have to in an inflationary environment? Or are we okay with the trade-offs? So.
Well, thank you. I mean, there's money in the HIF that's not being expended. It's there's a lot of cash in the HIF that's just waiting to be used.
I think we can talk about that more, but I think there's this disconnect in understanding about when the HIF makes commitments to deals versus when the money goes out the door. That is not uncommon. Frankly, we've issued $50 million in debt, and it hasn't all gone out on the housing fund too. So there's just a timing to deals, and so I think that's a misperception that's caused some problems.
Thank you.
Councilmember Friedson.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to talk about what we're going to talk about here. I'm going to say what the motion is going to be. If it's more appropriate, we can wait until the next item to actually move it, or we can move it now. It's kind of up to the council president and the Fed committee chair. But a couple things I just wanted to note. First of all, there's always trade-offs, right? And we either commit to something or we don't. And here we tried something different, and it's working remarkably well. And it has gotten national attention. In fact, it's been called a national model for how local governments can fund affordable housing. And I think we should try things, and things that work we should double down on, and things that don't work we should change. And this is an example of something clearly that works. I'm proud of this entire council's commitment throughout this 4-year term, starting with President Navarro's first year really committing to this and focusing on the COG housing targets, and then not just with rhetoric, but with actual actions, appropriations, law changes. We are working through it. We had a long conversation yesterday, the difference between saying we're going to do things and actually following through and doing them. And I think this is a really important example of that. There is a cost to it. There are always trade-offs. I'll note a couple things. One, HOC, in the absence of this, the other trade-off is either their pipeline doesn't go as quickly as it could to meet our housing goals that we've committed to, that we all have agreed we desperately need, or they're going to have to tap more money in more expensive ways into the HIF in competing for those same dollars in the same account. So there's also the question of what's the smartest way, what's the best way to do this, particularly in an environment that we now recognize. We've been talking about it, but we didn't really realize it, maybe, that interest rates are eventually going to go up, and we have to take advantage, where we can, as appropriate, and find that right balance. And that's always the challenge that's before us. A couple things of note that weren't mentioned. There are revolutions of this, as were noted. So basically, you have a 4 or 5 year revolution, 20-year fund. In the full 20 years, this additional tranche will generate the projection based on what we've seen so far is 2,924 units. So each revolution is about 731 units. There's multiple revolutions over the 20-year cycle. Then the beauty of it is because it's a fund that pays back, then the bonds are paid off. And then the money that is left in this fund, we're not paying anything for the additional units that we are getting. So, to me, this was the part that there was consensus on. We even heard from Mike Covey during our conversation of the other fund that we were talking about and are still in active discussion on. I know we're going to get to that later, but that this second tranche was discussed with the rating agencies. There is, we've discussed this in, publicly about potentially moving to 100, two $50 million tranches. The additional $100 million has not been discussed. That is new, which we recognize. And, I don't think new is bad, but new is new, and that's fair. But I think it's important to note that there was a recognition that this has been discussed over a long period of time and was part of the initial discussion. And I just want to note again, the last issuance, 2.08%, versus double digits. That's the difference. This is our public housing agency. And the gap between what the cost is there is a huge difference to the amount of affordability that we can have in the projects that we're doing and the number of projects that we can actually do. Now, HOC on its own is not going to solve all of our affordable housing and all of our housing challenges. We have a lot of providers who are in the room here, a lot who aren't. We've got the private sector. Everybody's got to be involved here. But if we're not focusing on things that work and we're not doubling down on the efforts that we've already made, I'm not really sure how serious we are to the commitments that we have. So the committee had recommended that we move forward with the second tranche. Staff has a recommendation for the funding out of the HIF. Essentially, it's $4 million in appropriations, and the expect, as we heard earlier, is a $2.5 million expected repayment, and so it'd be a net estimated cost in fiscal year 23 of $1.5 million. That would be reflected in the HIF. I know we're going to get through and talk about more about the HIF. And we have a number of programs and appropriations and new programs and existing programs in the HIF. But we have it's kind of an interesting dynamic. We had a committee recommendation as we discussed this, but not fully the mechanism for how to pay for it necessarily. And so it's not necessarily a formal committee recommendation, but I would move that forward here if we're prepared to do it. And I think this is a really great way of doubling down on the success in affordable housing that this council has demonstrated over the last several years.
Moved by Councilmember Friedson, seconded by Councilmember Reamer. Discussion. Councilmember Reamer.
I'll just add, as Councilmember Friedson was describing, in the normal course of business, HOC would be coming to the HIF regularly for financial backing. And through this program, we've been able to significantly, actually, I think, remove the requests from HOC for the HIF, right? So just for this kind, I'm seeing some nodding over at HOC. Not that they haven't also had different kinds of support for rental assistance and other things like that. But it makes sense for the HIF to support HOC's work also. So I think this is a perfectly appropriate way to get this program off the ground. And as Andrew said, this is a gift for future generations. Once these bond funds are paid off, they're there forever. And what council will actually step up and take that action? That's really the question. And we've started it. Let's finish it.
All right, I just have a couple comments. So I have a great deal of respect for HOC. The partnership and alliance at the St. Elizabeth's Project is Exhibit A of being super creative in being able to not just meet housing needs, but also develop a public amenity that will significantly impact the quality of life of residents for generations. So, and I know that there are some creative thoughts being given to other projects across the county. And so beyond just the housing investment, HOC has been very proactive in seeing how they can help us with other needs as well. So I think it's a wise investment on many different fronts. I'm going to support this, but I am very anxious about expenditures now, albeit for very reasonable and laudable, and we've all acknowledged, myself as well, that we are in a housing crisis. I think it's a foundational issue of so many other challenges that we have in our community. We need to increase housing stock, frankly, at all levels to meet the demand that we are seeing. But we have to also face reality, and in a moment we will talk about another important investment. But there are, as is always the case this time of year during the budget process, many laudable goals, not all of which we are going to be able to get to. And we have to be honest and upfront about that. And we also have to acknowledge and be honest and upfront that we have made other commitments to other constituencies as well, including our retiree association. And so we cannot fall back on that. And we are going to try to make all of this work. It will not be perfect, but I understand where we are, and I understand the opportunity before us, but I hope to come back and hope to not have to immediately start with the mid-year savings plan. But I'm starting to get worried that's going to be the case. So we have a motion and a second on the floor. Any other discussion? Councilmember Reamer?
I just wanted to note that the HIF would absorb these expenses.
Got it.
Not.
Yeah, I know. I'm signaling the next few things we're going to talk about. Previewing what we're going to be talking about, because it's all sort of connected. All right. All those in favor of the motion and the second, please raise your hands. And that is unanimous among all those present and virtual.
Thank you so much. Continuing. So thank you, HOC. Go forth and build housing. Now we move into the general affordable housing, general government affordable housing programs and housing financing. And this is one where we did not get to a committee recommendation. We're working our way through, and we could not achieve it in the time. We went through our allotted time and then some. So it comes to the full council. Let's see. We can talk about the Executive's Housing Opportunity Fund. Let's just proceed in the order of the packet. So, Naeem, why don't you take us in?
So item number 5 covers a couple of different things. It covers the HIF portion of the Dhca budget, including the operating programs from the HIF. It also covers the CIP projects that the executive has sent over as amendments or as new projects. With respect to the HIF portion on the operating budget for Dhca, the committee did recommend 3-0 to approve the executive's recommendation with some modification. The first modification is with respect to the Homeowner Assistance program. The executive had recommended $4 million, of which $2 million would go to the general public assistance program, and another $2 million would establish a pilot program for county employees. The committee maintained the $4 million level, but adjusted the general public portion to $3 million, which is the same as the FY22 approved level, and leaving $1 million for the pilot.
So I just want to make a comment here. Again, last year, the council added $1 million for homeowner assistance for residents in our community who have trouble scraping together all the money it takes to buy a house. And this year, the county executive recommended adding a significant amount of money to that, but only for county employees, and actually reduce the amount that was for the public. And we didn't think that that was appropriate, and we rebalanced that. And we said, since you're piloting it, we don't even know how fast you're going to be able to get through that anyway. So we're going to keep the amount available for our residents generally. Of course, county employees are eligible to apply for that anyway. But we're going to keep the public share of this as it was, and then we will provide a significant increase of resources for the pilot program for county employees, which is still under bargaining, and then we'll proceed along that basis. So that's the committee's recommendation.
The second
continue.
modification, oh, I'm sorry.
Please continue is what I said, sorry.
Of course. The second modification was similarly with the general fund side of DHCA was to recommend adding 2 tranches for inflation adjustments. These are inflation adjustments coming from the HIF, not the general fund for DHCA. So the first tranche would be $24,335, and the second tranche would add $48,670 to get you to an 8%, 10% level respectively. So I'll pause there.
Nonprofit funding, yep.
Okay. Now we go to the CIP portion of this packet. The committee did approve 3-0 the executive's amendments to the Affordable Housing Acquisition Preservation Fund CIP. This is the traditional acquisition preservation CIP program. The executive is adding $25 million total. You'll see on page 2 it's $10 million, $24, $25, and $5 million, $26. So the committee did approve that 3-0.
So this is $25 million additional for the Affordable Housing Acquisition Preservation Fund from recordation tax premium. Great.
Okay. Now we turn to the Affordable Housing Opportunity Fund CIP project. The committee did not make a specific recommendation with this project. The FY23 funding request is $6 million, which is the same as the previously approved. So it's up to the full council, I think, to make a recommendation on that piece.
Okay, great. So can we just get an update here on the program and your ability to get money out the door? I'm concerned that you are sitting on top of a lot of money at our Affordable Housing Fund, and you're not getting those projects committed. So let's hear about this, please.
Okay. So the HIF fund, the HIF terminology covers a lot of different funding sources. So we have our general operating funds and the MHI, Montgomery Housing Initiative funding. We have the CIP funded component. Then we have the Affordable Housing Opportunity Fund, a discrete new fund that was approved last, 2 tranches of funding approved last spring that went through an RFP process. And then we have some proposed naturally occurring affordable housing as part of the HIF. And so the fundamentals of the HIF go across all of this. HIF lending is committed as available. So when we have an appropriation, we then work with our partners on allocating and committing those against the guidelines that we've published. We worked with our development partners, had a developer forum event in November of 2019. 2020, we published updated guidelines. We had not updated in quite some time. We operate against those guidelines, focusing on lower income, targeting 50 AMI, targeting across the county, targeting mixed income communities that we develop with these funds. But really, we focus on leveraging these funds and maximizing the number of units that we can deliver based on the available funding. We've consistently committed the funding available. So what we reported on in the Fed meeting, we provided in the December meeting as well, was an update that the FY22 available funds have been committed on a series of transactions, half of which had closed before April. We don't know. Not all of them are going to close in the fiscal year with the FY22. We count 1,200 units of affordable housing being committed or delivered in the future. Those commitments will not be dollars out the door even at the closing. There'll be construction draws, so money will be in the account, in the fund, as these transactions, if they're acquisitions, the money goes out the door. there can be draws against it. So the FY22 funding that we reported on was that we had about $69 million of funding, including HIF at about $60 million, federal dollars of about $8 million committed to those 1,200 units. At that point, we have effectively committed all of the FY22 money with the exception of about $5 to $7 million based on some of these commitment dollar amount uncertainties. There's cost overruns coming in, et cetera. So as we are focused on the balance in the HIF fund, in the CIP, or in the MHI fund, which covers a lot more than just the capital lending component of the HIF, there are balances that roll over. Each year in the package, you'll see the budget package, the expected rollover funds. At the time we did it, we expected about $5 million MHI fund in rollover. But as funds are appropriated and made available to DHCA, we work against the pipeline. We've reported that we are in conversations. We have pipeline targets for activity, both preservation and production. In FY22, about half the units were production, half the units preservation. They were with 11 different developers. They were across the county delivering senior, family housing, special needs housing, and from a ongoing pipeline perspective, we see future transactions similarly distributed, at about half the transactions that we're looking at being production, half preservation. So the concept or the conversation around what's in the balance is really a conversation we need to focus, if we can and where we can, the commitment, kind of the encumbrance of the funds relative to the dollars out the door. But the FY22 funding is substantially committed, and we're focused on the recommendations here to really allow us to support the activity in the market, the demand in the market, and we're seeing significant opportunity in the marketplace. Just specifically to the Opportunity Fund. So the Opportunity Fund is structured as an acquisition fund, providing short-term ready financing, creatively combined with funding from a fund manager. We went through the RFP process at the end of March. We were able to execute the contract. So we have the National Housing Trust Community Development Fund as our fund manager partner. They are actively engaged with the community. We're looking at right now 4 or 5 transaction opportunities. This is a fund that will put money out, 3-year target, allows time for the acquisition, stabilization of the property, and then long-term financing for preservation or production. The National Housing Trust brings some very creative pre-development funding. They have funding where they have better interest rates dedicated to proximity to Purple Line based on some grants. They have funding dedicated to very low incomes based on another grant. So this was the purpose of that structure, was to encourage, to target bringing these other flexible fundings into the acquisition process. That's very complicated if you're doing it in the really urgent timeline you need when a property goes on the market. So we have not committed any of our $14 million in that fund, but we are in conversations and transactions, and we fully expect that that $14 million will be employed in the fiscal year. That we'll be structuring that around the additional funding from the fund manager, other CDFI monies, and other monies that get brought into it, and then these funds will revolve. They will come back to us in the 3-year period, and we'll turn them over. But they're targeting high priority at-risk properties, with a lot of it focused on the properties, particularly under stress in the transit corridors. So, thank you.
Councilmember Friedson.
Thanks. I want to hone in a little bit on this. Appreciate your description, but currently there's $0 of the $14 million that we appropriated that's committed out of the Opportunity Fund.
That's correct.
Okay. The CDFI that you're working with, NHT, right?
Right.
How much have they committed?
We will commit jointly when we do transactions. So we've not committed dollars to any transaction from either their funding or our funding.
So what commitments do we have?
Well, we opened up for commitments end of March. So for the past month and a few days, we've been engaging. We could not commit monies on terms until we had a contract. So the contract was signed at the end of March, and we were able to begin, in earnest conversations on transactions.
But what's the nature of the contract? Is it like you put in $1, we put in $2, you
Okay,
put in
from
$3, we put in
Right. So the-
$1? We talked about leveraging their
The contract
dollars.
agreement is that our money will be leveraged at least 3-to-1. The target is 4-to-1, so that if there's a $10 million acquisition, it would be our $2 million or $2.5 million in that acquisition.
Okay, I asked this because we had this conversation last year. We had a very robust discussion about this. I had suggested that this fund was not going to be ready to start having conversations that are happening now for at least 6 to 9 months, which seems to be 9 to 12 months. And that we should stagger the appropriations, that I thought we should start with 8 to show that we were serious, to demonstrate a commitment so that you could bring the CDFI on board, whoever that CDFI might be, and that we wouldn't need the additional funding until at least next fiscal year, July 1st, which we probably don't even need it then at this point, because you're not going to close a deal and need the funds dispersed within the next couple of months, just by the nature of how long it takes to move. That's moot. We've moved forward. I get it. But now we're asking for another $6 million. So the question is, what is the additional $6 million doing? Rather than waiting to see the first of the dollars of the $14 million, seeing how that's going, seeing how that's leveraging, and then coming back and saying, hey, this is so successful, let's put another $6 million in, because if we can get $14 million to turn into $60 million, then we could turn another $6 million into even more than that. I mean, it's odd to me to start a fund, to not move any transactions, and then to request more dollars for the fund. And so I'm just trying to understand, what's the extra $6 million getting us in terms of projects and timing?
The timing to get to March included an RFP process. So with the appropriation, we could start the RFP. So we started the RFP as soon as we had the appropriation last year. RFP
Yeah,
process.
and just to be clear, I'm not criticizing you for the timing.
Right, but
I thought that was just the time that it takes to set a program like this
Right. And
up. That's there's nothing wrong with that.
But
That's just the nature of the beast.
In the RFP, having the $14 million created the level of focus that we have achieved. And I'd say we have an extraordinary partner that's got very good funding and financing relationships that this funding then leverages or brings attention, not just leverages, but brings attention and commitment. So it's a statement of the county's commitment to this that brings others to this. So at this point, the expectation based on market opportunities that we're seeing is that we will be committing these dollars. And right now, the transactions we're looking at could commit a fair amount of them, more than half the dollars. And this is in a month of conversations. So whether those come completion, it's based on properties that come to market. There are a lot of properties coming to market in today's environment. So the statement that we're making with the request for the $6 million is that we have established what we believe is a strong business structure with a strong business partnership. We're in a market where demand and activity, as reported, sales of multifamily properties doubled from 20 to 21. With $3.5 billion of multifamily sales on 12,000 units in 21, up from 6,000 units and $1.8 billion the prior year. So there is a lot of affordable housing coming to market. And the opportunity to take advantage of that, to put these dollars to work with committed partners, we think the $6 million will get used in FY23. We don't have closed deals. We've got a month of conversations and analysis under our belts. We have an active program. Terms and requirements are published, and so those conversations are ongoing.
Once you close a deal, how long before the capital is called? How long before the deployment of the dollars go into the transaction?
Commit.
It's acquisition money. It'll be dispersed at closing. So
Yeah, so between commitment and closing, how long is that?
60, 90 days.
Okay.
They can't commit money without appropriation, though. That's really an important thing for everybody to understand. I mean, from a finance perspective, you can't offer money you don't have permission to spend. We can't do that kind of speculative stuff because we could end up jerking people around. I mean, so that's part of the process here that people need to understand, that distinction between when the dollar goes out the door versus when they've tied up the money and said, that's for you, nobody else can have it. And so that's I think, something that's kind of put them made them appear like they're not doing as much as they are in a timely way. So I just.
Okay, appreciate that. Just a couple more questions, and appreciate the indulgence of colleagues here, but I think it's very relevant to the rest of our conversation. We just appropriated $14.7 million in loan repayments. What's the plan for those $14.7 million? How much of that is committed?
It is not committed because we didn't have it until it was appropriated. We have pipeline transactions that we will begin, that we're moving forward on. So that 14.7, we've got other dollars on the recommended HIF, and that's all part of HIF, right? That's just all part of this long-term financing approach.
Right, it's in the Housing Acquisition and Preservation CIP,
Right,
which
right.
is what we
And it'll
colloquial
add up to
basically
about
call
$100
it.
million of long-term financing. That's more than double what we've had in prior years. So we are in conversations with production preservation transactions are aware of, and properties that we would hope that we will be successful in working with partners on, that can absorb most of that $100 million. And these things all take time. So the short answer is we have not committed the funds. Okay, appropriations there. We have transactions.
So I understand things take time. We just appropriated this. This is not an unfair criticism here.
Right.
I don't want you to feel like I'm questioning your work. What I'm trying to understand from our sense is, we're deploying dollars, and we're also figuring out the timing of the deployment of dollars. That's what we're trying to figure out here, and that's part of our job. So the question is, how do we marry these issues? What is the need, and when is it needed? The $14.7 million that we just appropriated, when do you expect all of that money to be spent?
Well, it'll be in concert with the $22 million of the CIP that's recommended in the budget. It'll be in concert with the affordable MHI, affordable housing lending component. That will be committed over the course of FY23. So we have and are in conversation again with transactions on the preservation side when we talk about the naturally occurring affordable housing component, which is really not a separate fund. It's just a component of the HIF that we are recommending that we identify, dedicate, communicate to the marketplace is for preservation. That we're looking at transactions, 6 or 7 properties that we expect, in just today's market that could be preserved with 500 units. We're looking at production opportunities, including work with HOC. Some of the projects on the list, are in conversations with on HIF financing that we would expect that we would use the recommended budget here in commitments in the fiscal year 23. So we've, by December, had fundamentally committed the FY22 appropriations. It takes, properties coming to market, conversations getting to that point. So of that 14 million plus the other dollars, the history and the timing on fiscal year commitments over the last couple of years have been to commit those dollars pretty much, by the time we get to the third fiscal quarter. But, it is going to be a function of some of these moving parts in terms of which deals actually get presented that might get presented.
Got it. Okay. Well, I do think that, I understand the point of you don't want to commit dollars that you don't have. But we also have a HIF, and the HIF programs dollars. And there's really no point of programming dollars if you can't start working on a deal until the money is appropriate. We might as well throw out the programming because you're not doing anything with it. And so, worse than not appropriating is sitting on money that could be used to help people, could be used to solve one of our biggest challenges. We have a group of people in the back of the room who bang on the table and tell us we have deals upon deals upon deals, and we desperately need funding. And the department says that they don't have available resources, and because those funds are all committed. but it seems clear that the funds aren't all.
Well, but that's
committed.
actually why, with the 40 million, that we recommended full appropriation in '22. That was one-time money that came in, was sitting in the bank, and we said, let's get it appropriated in '22, and as quickly as they can push it out the door, they won't have the holdback that they have now, which is, okay, I've kind of run out of my ability to have money to commit.
Yeah, and I
And,
appreciate
you know-
that, but I it still doesn't. I still don't understand. You have the 22 million for FY23 that you're going to have on July 1st. You have the 33 million in FY22. That's there. You have the 14.7 million that we just appropriated in loan repayments. We have preliminarily approved, and we're about to approve, I would assume, the 4.5 million in Arpa funds that will be there. It would seem to me that you would have a pipeline of deals, most of which you couldn't fund, and you have a large infusion of cash and other types of funding that you are getting, and then all of a sudden you pick up the phone and say, guess what, we've got money. We didn't have money for you yesterday, we have money for you today. Let's go through the legal framework here. When you're ready for the money, we're ready to go, and then it's ready to go. And then when we appropriate next year's funding, already being in preliminary conversations saying, listen, we have program dollars. If we waited to build a school until the money was appropriated in the year that it was appropriated, and we couldn't get construction contractors and we couldn't get design plans and all these things in place, we'd be in big trouble. And that's why we don't operate like that. We plan ahead so that when the money is deployed on July 1st, it's ready to be invested. And so it might not be exactly a conversation for now, but we've got to sort a little bit of this out, because it does feel like there is a disconnect and a delay between the housing providers who are telling us they're coming deal after deal after deal, and they're being told that the money is all committed, and we're looking at a HIF with tens of millions of dollars in it that we're told haven't been committed yet. We're told that there are conversations happening. We're told that there's discussions
Well, and I
happening.
apologize for terminology. You know, when we say committed, we have not written a commitment. So we technically and financially have not encumbered the funds, because we don't encumber funds until they're appropriated. Yep. So it's terminology around commitment and encumbrance. So we have we call them conversations because we haven't written a commitment, but we have a pipeline. We have pipelines that we are very specific about with some partners about dollar amounts they need, and we're working on the final dollar amounts. So the pipeline that we're working with, production and preservation, is right now, you know, if you add up all the dollars that are being asked, it would be actually close to 100 million. We don't expect all of that to come through. But it is in real terms in conversations with, you know, a number of our, you know, long-term affordable housing partners, and we just at this point are just using the terminology of commitment as, you know, whether we've encumbered the funds. But the funding, right.
To me, it's like the
Look at
difference
committed.
if somebody is in sales and they tell you that they're trying to get an investment. They say, "Oh, we've had conversations with 2,500 potential clients." So, okay, well, how many invoices do you have? And they say, "Well, I have 0 invoices, but we have a lot of promising leads." And it seems to me we're closer to leads on a lot of these things than in the final stages of signing on the dotted line with a specific dollar amount. And that's where the confusion is with the housing providers who are here. Like, we want to get this money out as quickly as we can to them, and it feels like there's some sort of delay that I'd love to figure out. It'd be helpful if we had that pipeline, you know, if you shared that with us specifically here, you know, and if you don't want to use the name of the of the project itself, but here's the type of project, here's the type of funding, here's where it's coming from, here the number, the number of units that we're getting at it, boom, 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 and you know, here's where it is in the process and when it's expected to close. I mean, I think I've been asking for that level of transparency in the HIF for 4 years now, haven't gotten it. We're basically exactly where we started on the HIF. And I understand there's been a lot of stuff going on, and DHCA has been stretched in a lot of different directions, been asked to do a lot of stuff. But I think we really do need that. Having said all that, we got to figure out how to address all of our affordable housing needs. And there are a lot of needs out there. There are a lot of folks who want to make deals. And, I think we should be deploying this money as best as we can. So I'll yield back to you, Mr. President. I appreciate the indulgence, and thanks for answering the question.
Thank you. Councilmember Hucker.
Thank you, Mr. President. Interesting discussion. We're talking about preserving existing affordable housing. I've talked to the county executive and all of you about how important that is to the administration. That is even more important when you can keep existing affordable homeowners or tenants in their homes. There's an opportunity like that right now in Tacoma Park at the Leland. There's 15 existing affordable units. The building owner is selling. I know you're aware of it, but I want to make sure my colleagues are. It's in danger of being renovated and turned into high-end market-priced units right now. It's less than a mile from the Tacoma Metro, and the tenants approached me because they want to purchase it, renovate it, make energy efficiency improvements, and retain 15 affordable homes near Metro, which is a great goal and very, very hard to come across projects like that. But I was told also that DHCA doesn't look favorably on that project, so that seems out of alignment with your stated goal of preserving existing affordable. So can you elaborate? Tell me if I'm wrong.
Well, and I've personally spent time with that association and with the city of Tacoma Park. 15 units at the acquisition price of the property, and then proposed renovation costs.
Which is $125,000 per unit to acquire,
And
and $200,000 to renovate
per unit.
Right.
To end up with over $300,000, $350,000, $400,000, depends on which model they were looking at, for units that would probably have market value of about $200,000. And so the challenge that's represented here is it's a very small property. The cost per unit would not be able to be supported by the value of the property, and the soft dollars needed would be most of that. And so it's a use of funds that we're talking to them about. We're remaining engaged, but the dollars per unit, the renovation costs expected. There's a consultant working on it that has long experience working with tenant associations, working with ownership models, and so we're interested in ways this could be done that could be sustainable in this building and in others. But it's right now the proposal and the building as it exists gets to presents a very expensive per unit investment.
Huh. That surprises me. Wouldn't it be? How common would it be for us to spend expect to spend $200,000 to $300,000 per unit for new affordable housing near Metro?
And we have
that would be common, right?
From an investment perspective, on average for our rental units, we're under $70,000.
Pardon me?
Under $70,000.
Under $70,000
of county soft money. But fundamentally, all of our lending focuses on being secured by real estate. We're a lender, and to lend where the total debt, and particularly our debt,
Right.
is not secured and would not have a likelihood of repayment, is it presents an issue that we're focused on. But again,
Right.
we're open for that conversation and interested in finding ways. The protections to those tenants in the city of Tacoma Park are against rent increases, and so there is a balancing of the investment dollars available for our 20,000 households that are paying more than half their rent, where dollars are, as much as we are just talking about where we are in commitment process and encumbrance, we're trying to maximize every dollar.
Right. No, that's a good goal. The city of Tacoma Park, is very supportive of this and
Yes.
looking for help from the county.
Correct.
So you're saying we can build new affordable for $70,000 a unit near Metro? That surprises me.
Not that we would build, but that we would, our subsidy dollars to leverage others and be secured by the real estate and expect to be repaid.
Right. And in this case, the tenants want to purchase the property themselves.
Right.
So you have their equity to invest
Well-
in the renovation, right?
They would have, again, it gets to the point where there is no equity. It's negative equity. It's, the debt puts the units substantially,
This is an important conversation and a really good illustration, but I think we're talking about a very specific project, and we still have a lot to get to.
we can
But
move
I'd
on.
love to
I'd love to
suggest
follow
is,
up.
yeah,
Yeah,
that would be
sure.
great, and I think we'd all be interested in hearing what the follow-up is specifically, but I appreciate Councilmember Hucker raising this point, because it does provide a very
It's a great
specific
example.
illustration and example of what we're talking about.
Right. Thank you.
Sorry.
Okay, back to the packet. So,
Mr. President,
I apologize, Councilmember Jawando. Yes, you are next in the queue.
thank you. I appreciate it. Mr. Demaray, the $6 million that you're requesting for the Affordable Housing Opportunity Fund CIP, we've had a long discussion about how you intend to use it. Just to restate, you believe, you said, based on the conversations you're having, and I appreciate the distinction between conversation and commitment and encumbrance, and that's important. There's approaching $100 million. Obviously, that will not all come through, but you think you feel confident that this additional money, you'll be able to spend it in the next fiscal year.
Yeah, the answer is yes. Specifically, speaking to the Affordable Housing Opportunity Fund and those dollars for acquisitions as properties come on the
Yes.
market. Yep. Right now, the expectation based on market activity and the feedback is, yes, we believe that there will be demand, that we will be able to fully employ $20 million, the current 14 plus 6.
Great. And, we talked about the CDFI approach last year. I'm glad you've got a good partner, 3-1. That's a great match. 4-1's even better. So it sounds like that's, but at a minimum, it's going to be 3-1. Is that correct?
That's correct. It's, that's the contractual and RFP minimum, but all indications from this and transactions we're looking at and others that have done like this, we expect it should be at least 4-1.
Great. And, to our previous conversation, I supported in committee the initial $50 million for HOC and this other $50 million revolving fund. We need more housing for more people, and that requires preservation of existing affordable. It requires production of new housing, and it requires protection of renters as well. And we're talking about those first 2 points for the most part here. And we have to have an all of the above strategy. We have to, and I think while it's our job to make sure that money we appropriate is spent in a timely and an appropriate way, I do think that we have to give some level of flexibility for you to set these programs up and encumber the funds. And we want to make sure that we're getting money to our nonprofit providers through the HIF, and we want to make sure that, some of which we'll talk about that shortly, but we want to have as much out there as possible to have as different avenues to achieve our goal, which is a significant uphill climb. So, I'm still of the opinion that I think you've made progress. You haven't signed on the dotted line on a lot of these, but I think it's not lost on me that we want to make sure that when you go into to Ms. Beck's point, you can't offer something you don't have. And we don't want to, we want to make sure that you can move forward. And you've talked about in depth today. I agree with previous comments that we need to have a better sense of the timeline, the pipeline in real time. We need to figure out mechanisms to do that, not only us, but also the community in general and the nonprofit community in general. And so we need to work on that. And that is something. But based on what you've said, I think this makes sense to move forward. So, Mr. President, it's not a committee recommendation, so there needs to be a motion. I would be happy to move for the CIP for the $6 million.
Okay, so that is moved by Councilmember Jawando, seconded by Councilmember Reamer, and this just tracks with the county executive's recommendation. Okay. And I appreciate the line of questioning, and I especially appreciate Councilmember Friedson helping enumerate and get clarity on the complexity, and I appreciate the response from Dhca. All those in favor of the county executive's recommendation, please raise your hand. And that is unanimous among all those here and virtual.
Okay, now continuing to the Noaa Fund. So 2 years ago, the Fed committee spelled out a vision for making some significant increases in affordable housing financing. We talked about two major elements. One of them would be a $100 million fund for HOC to expand its construction and its production of housing. And with this budget, we will achieve that. And the second was a $100 million preservation fund. The preservation fund actually really, at least in my mind, has its origins substantially in the recommendations of the Purple Line Corridor Action Coalition. And the Purple Line Coalition has asked us for a $100 million preservation fund, which is tied to a per unit calculation based on the number of units that are needed, or the number of units that we need to get under control in order to preserve the long-term affordability of that corridor, which personally for me is a high priority. And I think the Purple Line has amazing potential for this county as an economic engine. But what we want to do is preserve it also as an accessible area that the workforce can continue to live in, and that it has jobs and amenities and walkability and bikeability and affordable housing. So the urgency now, before the Purple Line is open, before those changes begin to take place, is great. And so we talked about creating a $100 million fund, and we explored that at committee right at the beginning of the pandemic. And, candidly, we've gotten a lot of pushback. Executive branch has not been enthusiastic about creating that kind of a debt fund, because we were talking about creating a $100 million debt fund. And, I acknowledge there's no free lunch in this world. And so if you were to create a $100 million debt fund, then you've got to be able to commit to paying off that interest for 20 years. But as we were talking about with the HOC fund, the amazing thing is once you pay it off, it's here forever. And the idea would be to create a revolving fund that would be here forever. And, the value to future generations of having done that, it just reminds me of the saying about, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, the second best time is today. It's just something that a council, the council, county executive has to figure out how to create so it can be here forever. But acknowledging that there's a lot of details that have to be worked out. And if we were going to, for example, create a $100 million fund, we would want to know that there are projects that we can start putting that money into right away. Or else we have leveraged debt and we're paying interest and we're not lending the money out, and that doesn't really help. Then we're just paying interest costs, without being able to get a return on that investment. So, with that in mind, and with all these conversations that we've been having, I appreciate county executive's recommendation for $40 million in cash towards a preservation fund. And we've talked about this extensively at the committee, and we know that, even though we know that $100 million is roughly the amount we expect is needed for the Purple Line Corridor, there may not be enough opportunities in a given period of time to fully commit $100 million. So it's important to be flexible. We need to have $100 million for the Purple Line Corridor, but we don't want to say any funding created is restricted to that. And so the executive has, I think, been responsive, as Mary Beck said, been responsive to the committee's agenda here to make a big investment in naturally occurring affordable housing, to put money on the table to help us acquire and hold, ultimately redevelop affordable housing for the long term. So, I know that council staff has some concerns about this, and I'll certainly turn it to staff to share that. But what I'd like to just put on the table for my colleagues is that we would approve the executive's $40 million recommendation, while acknowledging that what we really want to do is get to a $100 million fund And so we would have some budget language that directs the executive branch to model that out for us and figure out how, what kind of project pipeline, what organizations might be partners, what the repayment terms would be, and come back to us in September and let us go through this at the committee. And we would have a large cash amount in the preservation fund, thanks to the $40 million recommendation, and we could really get into it and see if we think there is, a strong basis here now at this time to move forward with seeking the $100 million fund. So that's my broad recommendation to the body here, is that we approve the 40, seeking a presentation to us, a process at Dhca, devising options for our consideration in the fall, and then we can take it up at that time. And anything like this of this magnitude has to be very carefully thought through, and we just can't just jump off. With that, I will turn it to council staff to share your recommendations, and we'll have discussion here.
Okay. Yes, as you noted, Chair Reamer, the committee did not make a specific recommendation of this project. The county executive is recommending $40 million in total, including $5 million in this current year, FY22. He's also recommending $40 million of appropriation in FY22 of current revenue. And as I understand it, that $40 million will represent a commitment to attract developer funding. Staff's concerns are, for a current revenue funded project, this is fairly atypical. We typically council appropriates current revenue in the year it's expended. Staff is also concerned that this is a new program. We've had conversations where there are potential projects lined up, but this is a new program, and council perhaps needs more information on those projects, on those potential projects down the line, in order to appropriate this funding. So staff's recommendation is actually to program $20 million each in 23 and 24, which I want to stress is not a cut from the executives. It is simply programming $40 million in total in 2 years. Staff's recommendation is also to delay the appropriation for 23, the $20 million appropriation, until we get more information. I understand Dhca has a lot of information developing. I think we can come back in a fairly short amount of time to council to have that review and to release that 23 appropriation. And the third point is that for FY24, we would delay the second $20 million until FY24. This would give time for council to look at the progress that's been made in 23 in terms of how much has been committed, how much potential projects there are, what's been committed, and what's been encumbered. And all of this to say, there's nothing that precludes Dhca from coming back earlier, seeking a supplemental appropriation for that second $20 million if need be. So, I think this is, again, not a cut. It's staff's recommendation is putting a slight break on the appropriation process to give us more time to collect information, to review the projects, and to understand what this new program really is.
Thank you. I see, Ms. Beck, you have your light on, and then I have a couple comments regarding this. Ms. Beck.
Yeah, just sort of from a budget wonky perspective. If you were to approve what Councilmember Reamer proposed, which is full appropriation at this time, those funds would be committed and be earmarked for this purpose. If you do not appropriate the money, well, until you appropriate the money, it is not committed. So I don't know if you're spending this on something else or not. And I don't know if it's there or how it's fitting into your reserve ratios or not. I mean, if you're sort of setting it aside and saying we're waiting for something, I feel like we've been slowed down all along on these things. I totally understand the Housing Opportunity Fund was a different animal that probably required something different. This is just a different pot of money with the same procedures that are already in place. You've got people saying they've got deals to do, so I'm not sure what more we need to wait. And I don't think council's intending to get into the loan review committee perspective and approving individual deals. Because I'm not really sure what more information specifically is needed. We can get pipeline information to you offline. So I'm just not sure the total hesitancy, but I do want you to understand if you approve something like this, you are not committing the money. It is not set aside unless you make some other provision. And so it may not be there when you want us to come back for a supplemental. It may not be there in 24 if it has to be newly appropriated. So just from a technical perspective.
Great. Mr. Mee, I just have a couple of comments just to provide a little bit more context. And I really appreciate, I understand and respect the staff recommendation. And within the context of a $6 billion budget where we have a tremendous amount of expectations, needs in a variety of key areas, we are never in a position to be able to address all those needs. And so it is appropriate for staff to look not just in this particular fund, but in all funds to see what we can do to help ensure that we fit as many of these needs into the operating budget as possible. And as I have noted, we have a $50 million plus running tab in items that are being placed on the reconciliation list, including $20 million that we have signaled off the top that we disagree with the county executive's approach unanimously in taking from the employee trust fund. And we have a proposal that we discussed this afternoon in the HHS committee, which is critically important, to expand wellness centers to high schools in Montgomery County with a price tag of $5.8 million. So those are just two examples of, important initiatives. And so I understand the concern raised by folks who are deeply committed to this work and live and breathe it, and thank God they do. Because they are on the front lines trying to aggressively meet the needs of our constituents, which we know are growing by the minute. And that gap that we keep referring to, that COG has shown us, and HOC illustrated once again just a little while ago, the delta continues to divide, which is a huge problem. So I just don't want there to be the impression that the staff recommendation in any way at all does not underscore the importance and the value and the critical nature that we all find ourselves in housing. It's just a product of, and I'm learning this year as council president, I'm involved in all of the conversations from the respective committees, and this is a good year, how challenging all of this can be. But with that said, acknowledging where we are and the priority that this is, while this will make things more difficult as we go through reconciliation, I understand the committee's recommendation, and given the depth of needs that we have within the housing space, I would have preferred the model that the chair mentioned a little while ago, which obviously has its own downsides with regards to $100 million, debt service, but we can't do both. We can't do all. So I think, this is what's before us right now. So I will support, Ms. Michelson has requesting to speak, and then I'm going to turn it over to Councilmember
I just want to
Friedson.
make clear, there is not a committee recommendation.
Right, that's what county executive recommendation, I misspoke.
Right, the county executive recommendation.
Right.
And I just wanted to clarify some of staff's concerns is that we really do not understand what this program is. And in the exchange between Councilmember Hucker and executive staff on a simple little project, we got a sense of how complicated it may be to try and figure out how to preserve naturally occurring affordable housing. At this point, we have not a single detail on how this program will operate. And in fact, an announcement came out from the county executive yesterday or today saying this was a program to build new affordable housing. I don't know if that was just like an error in an announcement, but it really made clear that there's a lot of confusion as to what this program is for. The second thing is, from staff's perspective, it appears to be very unlikely that the full $40 million could be spent in FY23. The council never appropriates current revenue for multiple years, except in rare cases where it's like a construction project and you have to enter into a contract. So if it's likely that the money is not going to be spent until FY24, appropriating it now locks away that money that could otherwise be used in this important fiscal year for another purpose. And the alternative would be to have a commitment through the CIP, as you do for multiple projects. When you program in the CIP for multiple years, you are making a commitment to fund those projects. You're simply not appropriating the money in the year in which it's not going to be spent. So the staff recommendation, again, is to support the program, support the funding, but not the upfront appropriation. So.
Thank you. That's helpful to underscore the point. I've got Councilmember Friedson, followed by Councilmember Katz, and then Councilmember Jawando.
Thank you. Well, first of all, thanks for all the conversation on this. I am excited that we are having as much of a robust conversation as we have had over the last couple of weeks, and certainly last couple of days on affordable housing. And I think it's a reflection and a positive one that this is a real commitment that this county has. There might be slight disagreements on how to fund it and the mechanisms to finance it. There might be slight disagreements on what programs to prioritize within this space, because there's a lot of different ways to do it. And the reality is we have to try to do some form of all. We need all types of housings, all types of housing in all parts of the county. But there is a real commitment here, and there's a real commitment with real dollars in a significant way. I continue to believe that there is a better way to do this. That would leverage more dollars for a longer period of time. That would be a more consistent commitment. But it's good and better, right? Like $40 million in ready to go cash in a very simple program is good. I think there might be an opportunity for better, and that's a good place to be. That's a good conversation to have. I will note, we tend to finance things where and when we can, as appropriate, within reasonable affordability guidelines. Mark Zuckerberg mortgaged his house. He bought a $7 million house in California, and $5.95 million of that was financed. And I don't think that was because of the performance of Meta stock and the inability to pay, a billionaire to pay a few $1 million. It was because he was able to obtain good interest rates, and it was a smarter way for him to do that. And, I continue to believe that we have an opportunity to do this. I think that we ought to think about it. I appreciate Chair Reamer. We've been working on this for a few years now. But obviously we have something good in front of us, and something that could make a difference. I appreciate staff's recommendation and understand where it's coming from. And I do think that we need to prove that this money can actually be deployed, which, I still have concerns about that, not just this program, but all programs. But I also think that this money could just go into the HIF, by the way. I mean, I think we're putting into a separate fund. We're kind of demonstrating a commitment to naturally occurring affordable housing. But I have a slight disagreement that this is a new program, because it really isn't a new program. It's a line item that shows that the county executive has committed to this, which frankly he could commit to with his words and his actions without a formal PDF line item in the HIF. This is just for standard naturally occurring affordable housing deals that affordable housing providers come to DHCA with on, I would imagine, a daily basis, maybe a weekly basis, probably an hourly basis. So I'll just say one thing here, and then I'll close out. If the council appropriates this money, and we appropriate it in FY23, this money has to be deployed in FY23. So I expect a commitment here, and we're going to hold you to that. And if it's not, then we're going to have some serious issues. And there are concerns that providers have come to DHCA and haven't been able to have deals. And so, I appreciate the idea of going big here and going for it. But if we're going to go for it and we're going to approve it, we're sacrificing a lot of other stuff in the budget because of our commitment to affordable housing. And that's a worthwhile pursuit if the money gets deployed to actually create and retain affordable housing. It does absolutely nothing besides sacrifice other critical, worthy, and important needs in the budget if this money sits in an account and carries over year. So I'm going to ask right now, commitment, if $40 million is appropriated in this budget, that $40 million will be appropriated in FY23.
The answer is absolutely yes, consistent with 21 and 22 when we functionally committed all of the appropriated dollars. So we believe strongly, especially based on the market activity that's going on right now and the demand that is, especially for our naturally occurring affordable housing. The demand is there and the deals will get done. They will be committed. Closings are, dollars out the door, but once we encumber and we put it in writing, the money's committed.
Sounds good. Well, I'm hoping functional commitment and actual commitment are the same thing.
The dollars out the door is the only caveat.
We're going to judge you on the dollars out the door and the units that are actually created and preserved. That's it. The rest of this is us up here talking without doing much. I would suggest that we get the pipeline as was requested earlier, and that we include that in actual language, budget language, so that it carries some weight, and also that we get a quarterly report on both the Opportunity Fund and on this naturally occurring affordable housing fund, since they are separated out as separate line items. And with that, I'll yield back to you. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Hooker has a friendly amendment, and then we're going to go back in the queue. Councilmember Hooker.
Very well said, Councilmember Friedson. Very glad to hear that commitment. I'd rather not be back here a year from now finding out where we fell short. Can you also commit to quarterly updates of the council to find out, to let us know where you are in the process?
Yes, and we've
Thanks.
Through the Fed committee focused on quarterly updates, but we'll get more detail on the pipelines as requested.
Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Katz, followed by Councilmember Juanda, then Councilmember Navarro.
Thank you, Mr. President. And obviously, if you run into problems loaning the money, you can always call Mr. Zuckerberg, because obviously he, what was it, $7 million? Is that what he needed? I guess I'm a little confused about this whole thing at this point. If we're saying that you are committed to doing what the money is supposed to be doing, which is not a shock to any of us, but what happens if it's not? It goes into the next year, I'm assuming. It stays in an account somewhere. Ms. Michelson, when you were suggesting for the $20 million and the $20 million over the 2 years, what happens to that money?
So for FY23, what Mr. Mia has suggested, which I think is a great idea, is that rather than appropriate at this moment, you ask the county executive to provide additional details on the program as soon as possible and then appropriate. Possibly, as early as July. That would be the FY23 money. And so we've suggested just a slight delay on that so that you can get details. Once the council appropriates money, your ability to change something is very limited. So if they develop a program you don't like, there's not a lot the council can do. And that's, by the way, true of the stakeholders, too. They could see the program react to you. There would be a public hearing at for the special appropriation during which they could say whether they like it, don't like it, it's working, it's not. We see that. We're hoping that would happen very quickly. The money would be released very quickly. The second part of the money, the FY.
Can I interrupt one second?
Sure.
All right, so what happens if they do not come back by July 1? What happens to that money?
Oh, thank you. Thank you for asking that. What we're recommending is that it be put in a reserve set aside for this purpose. So it would not be used elsewhere. It would be held until they come back with the program, however long that takes. So that money would not be redirected someplace else. For the FY24 money, it would be appropriated as part of the FY24 budget, consistent with the way you normally handle a multi-year current revenue appropriation, which would free $20 million for another purpose in FY23. And it would be part of the FY24 budget. But once again, with CIP projects, there are always multi-year commitments, and it's not appropriated up front. it is appropriated on an annual basis. And given this council's ongoing commitment, as I think almost every member has expressed, I would feel pretty confident that in FY24, that when this comes before you, you'd be prepared to appropriate at that time.
For the $40 million that was being discussed, in your the history of you deploying that money, how much has been deployed in the years previous?
In the HIF, and this 40 million is early, as Councilman Friedson was
Yeah, if
speaking,
you could
just
come a little closer to the
it's just
mic.
part of the HIF. So this is an aggregate pool of long-term lending capital. In FY22, we committed, and we've, there are closings, and some of them are going to spill into, over the fiscal year, 60 million of HIF funds and about 9 million of federal monies. In the prior year, we actually had 81 million of commitments. Some of them, a couple of deals were fairly short term, but we have committed all the available dollars. And as these dollars become available, and based on the conversations, and again, what we're seeing in interest, we have transactions that are on our list, but they'll be funded depending on where they fit out of the MHI long-term capital, the traditional HIF, or these Noaa targeted. And what we're simply saying with the Noaa targeted is we want to assure our partners that we'll have at least that much for preservation.
And now there was some confusion as to what is committed in this case. Did you actually take the money out of your account somewhere and give it to someone else?
The commitments, when we write a statement, a commitment letter, that they can then work with financing partners, banks, et cetera, that the county is committing this much money.
How much money did you actually take out of your account and give it to someone else?
In FY22, our written commitment letters totaled 69 million. And of that, about half of it has closed so far. And we have some large transactions still trying to close with the challenges that we're in with a lot of the elements. Right.
Am I correct that from what your commitment letters said, that you've taken almost $35 million out of your account and given it to someone else?
So we've encumbered it on our books. It has not gone out the doors until the transaction settles.
Then when does the money leave your account?
It will leave our account.
When does the person who wants to build this project get the money in their hand?
Right. Some of them are settling this month, next month, July, August. Some may slip into September.
And how long did it take them to get to settlement?
These transactions have been under conversation and development for, in many cases, a couple of years. Our commitments are generally made within we make it in this fiscal year.
But to Councilmember Friedson's point, the concern is, and I appreciate that there's a way that you have to go about it. You have to give somebody a commitment so they can go and get additional financing. This financing is not the only dollars that they need. I appreciate all that. But if it's not going to be spent, as to his point earlier, within the year, which you said that you could do, you can't do it because you don't know when they're going to settle.
At the point we commit, we have to have the appropriation. And
I understand. The money has to be in your cash register. I understand that.
Then when it goes out the door, it's going to be, as we said, it's a real estate transaction, timeline, combination of factors, et cetera. But once we encumber it, we can't spend that money anywhere else. We register that money as encumbered. For our purposes, is as good as spent.
I understand it's as good as spent for you. It's not as good as spent for the person that wants to build the housing. They don't have that money to build the housing. So that's the concern that I have, is when are they actually going to do the housing build? I mean, the fact that they have financing is wonderful, but if they're not going to use that money to build something, we didn't gain what we wanted to have happen.
As soon as they get to closing, ours is one part. Right, they got all their parts. State tax credits are a big part of that. When that gets settled, they start building. Right, the money starts getting spent. So I'm not
And candidly, and I'll stop. I mean, at some point we're going in a big circle, but candidly, we're in the business of trying to get some affordable housing built, and so are you. I mean, I'm not saying that you're not, but if we can't do it the way that is being suggested, what would be a better way? And maybe we need to work with the people who are actually building this housing to get them to be able to actually build the housing rather than it saying that someday we'll get to it. I mean, that's been the problem all along, as far as I'm concerned. Is the commitment is fine, but if you don't get the housing, what good was the commitment? So anyhow, I'll yield back. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got Councilmember Jawando, followed by Councilmember Navarro.
Thank you. Okay, so natural occurring affordable housing, Noaa Fund. Mr. Demaray, correct me if I'm wrong, that is residential rental properties that are affordable but unsubsidized. Is that a working definition?
Very clear.
Okay. How many of those residential rental properties that are currently affordable, people are living in them, paying, that are not subsidized, how many roughly do we have in the county right now, under your estimates?
Right. Well, the Planning Department 2020 study estimated we had about 28,000 naturally occurring affordable housing units.
Got it. And these units, by definition, and one of the things I think undergirding this fund, you can correct me if I'm wrong, are in the biggest danger of, if they're typically built in the 40s and the 90s. I grew up in several of these, one Quebec Terrace area, which would qualify. A lot of them are not in great shape. A lot of people are living in them because they're affordable at a rate, but they're also at the greatest risk of being redeveloped and the prices going up and people being displaced. Is that correct?
Yes, and that's the focus we have with these funds, which is the at-risk properties.
Got it. And we've seen the at-risk lists on Dhca and where we've had issues before. Some of those, there's some overlap on those lists. So I just think the context is important here. That we are 2 days away from the temporary rent stabilization that I authored and the council passed twice from expiring. We're in an inflationary period. The good news is there are some markers that the inflation is not continuing to go up, that we've reached the peak of it, which would be great, but we'll see how that goes. But we're in an inflationary period where costs are high. There's demand for housing like there's never been before. And there's transit, in the case of the Purple Line corridor, like where I talked about where I grew up, coming in, and there's other projects that are good, but that increase the likelihood that this is going to happen more rapidly. So we have to act with certainty. We don't have the 6 to 9 months to pause, or the 3 months to pause. If you've encumbered $69 million and half of that is out the door, contracted, I think to Councilmember Katz's questions, and you're highly confident that you can get this out the door, and our affordable housing partners, that some of whom you'll work with, are ready to step up. Again, just restating, you will spend this money in FY23, or commit this money, encumber this money contractually in FY23.
Yes, and to preserve the units, getting it committed, they will get closed.
We have to do it. I agree. It's a bold, big step. It's unprecedented in the use of cash, but we are at a point, and try to provide some context here. I think context is very important, that we're going to have some significant challenges with this population, with this unsubsidized, naturally occurring population. And to have a fund directed to that specifically in name, and everyone's clear about what the goal of it is, and it has to be used for that, I think is a good thing. We can talk about doing things better and bigger and more, and we need to get these reports. I agree 100%, and that we're going to be looking for those in Fed, and I'm sure all of our colleagues will want to see that information, and we'll hold you accountable. But I do think that this is something that we need to do, especially right now. So if it's appropriate, Mr. President, I'm happy to wait, but I'd like to move that we fund this this county executive's proposal.
Well, before we formally make the motion, we've got Councilmember Navarro in the queue, and then we'll go back to that motion, Councilmember Joando. So Councilmember
good.
Navarro.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate the discussion. I also appreciate the work that the Fed Committee has done to lead us through all of these processes. I think that it is very clear that, of course, we have made this commitment. We are on record. We also, I think, have been really busy. And again, I think the Fed Committee has done a great job at identifying all these different avenues and all these, creative ways to get us closer and closer to achieving progress in something that has become a real crisis in our region, to be honest. And I do applaud the fact that the executive has included this amount. It reminds me a little bit of the conversations we've had on the GO committee regarding the public campaign financing fund, where literally it's sort of that thing where if you don't signal that there is something there ready to go, then how will people, in this case, how will the affordable housing partners really think that this is serious and it's real and that this is something that this county is intending to really do? I mean, it is that real concern with perception, but also reality. But I do, want to thank also our council staff, because this is the directive every year. It is try to find some, savings, and as we push through. It's weird for the council because here you're getting, almost a $6 billion budget of sorts, and then we're having to kind of add in the scheme of things just in the edges. It sounds like a lot of money on the reconciliation list, but when you put it into perspective of the percentage for $6 million budget, it is tough. It's all of this exercise of twisting ourselves into a pretzel to really add a very small percentage. But it just means that we are always willing to pay attention to what the needs are there, and that our charter is very generous for this council because we can indeed add. In this case, we're accepting a recommendation that I think it's appropriate, and I will support once the motion is made, and we're happy to offer a second or whatever it is. But I really do think we need to move forward. It is an important signal for our affordable housing partners, but also for our residents. Thank you.
Thank you. So Councilmember Joando, do you want to make the motion as amended to accept the county executive's recommendation? Oh, sorry, Councilmember.
I can let Mr. Chair or my Fed chair make it, and I'm happy
Sure.
to participate.
Thank you. I was happy for you to make the motion, but I just wanted to add the language about directing the department to develop a model for us with some options for our consideration.
And we had the reporting.
And
I think we
yeah,
asked
and the
twice,
reporting.
actually.
Yes.
But if we could include that language into the motion, I would appreciate it.
So motion would be for the program with the reporting back and a recommendation on a larger program, I think. So I'm happy to make that amended motion.
Okay, I'll second that. It's more than a little different than a recommendation on a larger program. We're as I said, we're seeking the department to build out a plan for a $100 million fund, bringing us the options to achieve that. I think it would be likely blending this cash, frankly, with debt funding. But we'll see what you identify. So we would have that in September. We would ask you to come back to us in September.
Fed, and that would be budget language, correct? Yeah. Okay. Sure.
So
Sounds
second
good.
that motion. I second that motion.
All right, we've got a motion by Councilmember Joando, second by Councilmember Reamer. All those in favor? It is unanimous. All right, what's next?
Okay. All right. Housing communities happy.
Well, they better be, because we just put ourselves in a box. All right, keep going.
All right. That really that's. I guess we need the overall budget on. There was no other point. We approved everything else.
No, we
Yeah.
did cover everything, yeah.
Okay. Great. So now we're on to property tax options.
All right, so this is item number 6, and this is a GO item. Our very able analyst, Mr. Gene Smith, of course, has prepared a very comprehensive packet. I want to thank him. I want to thank Mr. Platt, as always, Ms. Fellman as well. And let me just go over, this is kind of straightforward. FY23 County Executive recommendation is to approve a weighted property tax rate of 0.9785. I'm sorry, just there's a lot of distraction. For $100 of assessed value, and this is equal to the approved FY22 weighted property tax rate. Also, the executive recommended an income tax offset credit, ITOC, of $692 per eligible property, and that is equal to the approved FY22 ITOC amount. And that is exactly what the committee recommended to the council. And I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Smith, if you just want to very quickly describe what these two things actually do. But it was very straightforward.
Very good. And I'll also just note for the record that typically the council does review this not as a consent item, since it's such a significant fiscal decision before the council. As we know, the charter was amended a couple years ago, and so the county charter now allows the council to set the same weighted property tax rate each year at a just a standard threshold vote. If the council should decide to exceed that weighted rate from last year, it would need all unanimous council members would need to approve such a motion. In addition, the income tax offset credit is a flat tax credit available to all owner-occupied residential units in the county. It's been $692 for a very long time, but it does provide some progressivity because it has greater weight for those that have lesser value in their home as opposed to those that have a higher value. And as Ms. Navarro already said, the GO committee's recommendation is the same as the executive's recommendation. And what the council will see in terms of its actual actions, there will be a resolution for the ITOC on May 26th approving $692. And on May 26th, there will be the levy resolution. And you will not see the weighted rate. It will be all of the various property tax rate, but the weighted rate will equal the one that the GO committee is recommending today. With that, I'll turn it back to Ms. Navarro.
That is the recommendation before the body.
Do we have a quorum? Yes, we do. All right, we have a committee recommendation. All those in favor of the committee recommendation, please raise your hands. And that is unanimous among all those present and virtual.
Okay,
Councilmember Rimmer.
I neglected one small item on the HIF. Should not take but a moment.
This is like an encore performance for you.
Yeah. Okay, this is a request that we've received from the Wider Circle. The council proposed ARPA funding, but I think we ultimately weren't able to provide that. There was a CDBG grant that expired. It was a 3-year grant. And a Wider Circle has asked if we could maintain them at the same services level of funding by earmarking $100,000 from the HIF for their ongoing housing services. Did I describe that correctly, Naeem?
That's correct, yes. That's the request.
So that's the request to my colleagues.
I'll second.
A motion is.
Sorry.
Did Ms. Navarro, did you move that? Thank you. Ms. Navarro moved that. Andrew seconded that. Thank you
Moved
so
by
much.
Councilmember Navarro, seconded by Councilmember Friedson. All those in favor, please raise your hands. That is unanimous among all those present and virtual.
Thank you. All right, now to the incubator programs. Welcome, Mr. Weissman. Okay. Well, want to express appreciation to the GO committee. The committee took up the recommendation for appropriations for small business for the new programs that we've initiated at the Fed committee for minority-owned small businesses, women-owned small businesses, black-owned small business, and annualized the FY22 supplemental appropriation through the FY23 budget, and we're very grateful for that. So the incubator had been, so this is under we're recommending that this be moved to the incubator program. Thank you. So that in the future it can be, there are a number of initiatives that are funded out of the incubator program. It would not be unusual to have an initiative like this. Biohealth Innovation is funded out of the incubator program. In fact, I think we talked about renaming it to Incubator, or maybe it already has a broader name, like Incubator and Economic Development Initiatives or some such. So, Mr. Smith.
Thank you. I'll just quickly go through since this is before the council, the committee's recommendation is to approve the executive's recommendation, which also included an amendment on April 19th because some funding was inadvertently left out. Let me just get the right. So that was the first recommendation. Also, apologies, my cover page failed to include two items that the committee did discuss. One was recommending that the executive staff work with the Latino Economic Development Corporation with some of the money that's already in there to work with Purple Line businesses, et cetera. And the second one was two $50,000 tranches for the nonprofit village on the reconciliation list. So the committee did recommend both of those. Ultimately, we're on here today off of consent because the Fed committee requested, as Mr. Reamer just said, moving the $877,000 from the Office of the County Executive for those initiatives into the incubators NDA. Since the GO committee had already reviewed that, we just decided it would be best to do this at the full council. As we note, the item number 8 is the Office of the County Executive, where we can make that action official. So that is the full Fed report out, and that's their recommendation before the council today.
Thank you. Mr. Weissman, did you want to make any comments?
No, just Ms. Costello and Mr. Bakila were meeting yesterday with LEDC, and the county executive is fine with moving this from CEX to the incubator NDA.
Great. So we have a committee recommendation. Seeing no comments or questions, all those in favor of the committee recommendation, please raise your hands. And that is unanimous among all those present and virtual. That moves us on to the next item on the agenda, which is the Office of the County Executive.
Thank you very much. And for this particular item, Dr. Torregas did staff us. It was quite straightforward as well, with the exception of what we just discussed. And so basically, we did vote 3-0 to recommend the requested amount as proposed by the county executive, which was $7,470,074, and then because of this shift of to the incubator NDA, actually the recommendation would be $6,593,074. The request was pretty straightforward. There wasn't really a lot of things that were all that different. We did note that there were, there is a change in terms of the appropriation from last year to this one, about 30%, 30.7% increase. But of course, that had to do with a lot of the different initiatives that we have put forth, and actually the council has actually put forth. But other than that, it's quite straightforward. Dr. Torregas, anything you'd like to add?
Yes, I also want to remind the council that you had a discussion this morning about food resiliency, and that there may be some transfers back into correct. The CEX from a different account. And I think, Jean, you might want to verify that and mention the amount. So
yes.
That number will again change slightly.
That's
and
right.
I think there's legislation already on the way from the executive
We took
branch.
away and we put back in. Thank you for reminding us of that. It was Ms. Wellens that did make that recommendation, and so that has to be adjusted in the language.
We'll take care of that.
All right. All right. So with that, that is our recommendation.
So since there is an amendment, we do need to make a motion. Can we get a motion to accept the committee recommendation as amended?
Yes, exactly.
Moved. Seconded by Councilmember Friedson. All those in favor, please raise your hands. And that is unanimous among all those present and virtual.
Great. That moves us on to business district development grants.
Okay. Well, this is not bad. I just have something to say.
Okay.
This is you, because it never, it's full council.
This is a full council item. And so, Gene, I'll turn it over to you to walk us through the packet.
Very good. And I believe Mr. Hartman is joining us virtually, so I'll just say that to signal him to go ahead and turn his video on if he's here with us on Zoom. So the business district development grants was recommended by the county executive at $500,000 in the March 15th budget. It was under the community grants non-departmental account, and since all of those grants are normally reviewed by the full council, this one was decided to do that as well. Given its unique nature, we thought we should also talk about it slightly separately, since it's different than most of the other community grants that are in that NDA. As noted, also the executive recommended an additional $300,000 for this program in his April 19th amendments. And so what's before the council today is the initial $500,000 recommendation and the $300,000 amendment. As noted in the staff report, the purpose of this program is to support the development of grassroots organizations and nonprofit entities that engage in placemaking, place management, business recruitment and retention, branding, and economic development activities in emerging business districts. The program must lead to the establishment of a Main Street Business Improvement District or an urban district corporation. And as you can see on circles 3 to 4, executive staff have provided the guidelines for this program. As council staff understands it, the business advancement team will manage this program in terms of providing online portal for these nascent organizations to apply. Again, as I understand it, there'll be kind of 2 main gateways to consider, whether you want to do a Main Street program or whether you want to do a business improvement district or an urban district corporation, since those have slightly different flavors. But ultimately, it'll be up to the communities that are applying for this about how they want to apply. They'll need to present their justification for the need of funds and how they're going to use those funds, and they will be vetted based on that. And so that is what the total $800,000 program will be for. And then certainly we're here joined by executive staff today to provide more information should the council have any questions related to this program. And I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Albanos. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got Councilmember Reamer followed by Councilmember Friedson.
Thank you very much. Well, lots to say here. This has been a big topic for some time. I want to express appreciation for the executive for putting funding in his budget for business development grants. When we took up the very challenging topic of the bid, it's been about a year now. There was a lot of concern about how would the smallest businesses be supported by the bid in Silver Spring, a specific context. And what I recommended at the time, and we discussed at Fed, we had a really excellent presentation about the Main Street project in Tacoma Park, which is the county's only Main Street. And we heard from the community about the opportunity of building Main Streets as a way of supporting the smallest businesses. That there was a way to have the county providing more direct support for small businesses in our urban districts, and that we could ultimately build a complementary strategy where there will be certain areas that will be served by Main Streets and broader areas served by bids, and they could all work together. As I'm sure Councilmember Friedson will describe, the Friendship Heights community and the White Flint community have been working for several years towards a goal of creating bids, and so we want to make sure we're able to support that as well. And in general, I'm very enthusiastic about the idea of providing funding for Main Streets in areas that don't really have the economic base yet to self-fund through the bid. So Councilmember Navarro for years has steadily added funding every year to our budget for basically similar kind of work in Wheaton. I mean, it's support for small businesses there, and it's staff on the ground, and it's marketing, and it's community building. It's all of that kind of work. And the Main Street model could be a way of institutionalizing that and giving it a permanent identity and home over time. So I think we're on to a promising direction here, and so I want to make sure we move forward with that. Secondly, the idea of the bid, is still, it's unresolved. So the state passed the Silver Spring bid. The state passed new legislation, and that has changed some of the requirements for bids. And so the bid that we have formed in Silver Spring has to recertify now. They have to change their board makeup to reflect the new requirement from the state, which is great, and they'll need to resubmit. So we are going to encourage that to proceed, and generally speaking, looking for a win-win here. So what I want to suggest for colleagues is that the executive has recommended $500,000 in the base budget, or in his general budget, for nascent bids in urban districts and main streets, and then we got a supplemental request for $300,000, right? Which would be intended for the locations that I would really see more as the Main Street component: Fenton Village, Long Branch, and Wheaton. And that we add that funding to the reconciliation list, the 300 in tranches of 100, to support those main streets, and have them be intentionally to support main streets, to build out the Main Street programming. And then that we add a separate fund to the council, to the budget for the Silver Spring bid. So the expected way of funding the bid is going to be to reduce the urban district tax and then allow the bid to replace the same level of tax that we've reduced with its own level of tax. So there's no tax increase, it's just a substitution. But we're not ready for that yet. The bid needs to go through additional work to meet concerns that we have and that the community has. So we want to see that proceed, but we're not there yet. So at the same time, we're confident that we can get there and that we should get there, and that if the county executive will work with us, that there is a win-win here that just requires some leadership. So what I'd like to suggest for my colleagues is that we add $600,000 in tranches of $200,000 to the reconciliation list to support standing up a bid, the Silver Spring bid, and then that will enable the organization to get off the ground and develop its foundation, and then next year we can take a look at how to fund it in an ongoing manner. So I'll make that motion now.
We have a motion and a second, but I do have several colleagues in the queue. So would colleagues like to speak to that motion, or would you prefer to speak more broadly?
I'll wait for.
Yeah,
I was going to talk about the actual proposal and specific questions and comments.
Why don't we hold off on the motion for now until those colleagues in the queue can speak, and then we'll come back to the motion. So I've got Councilmember Friedson, followed by Councilmember Navarro, and then Councilmember Jawando.
Appreciate it. First of all, I do really appreciate the collaborative efforts with the executive branch on this. We've been working a lot on many of these issues for quite a long time, and some of the stakeholders and some of the communities that we're specifically talking about here have been involved in formal and informal county-led efforts for over a decade that the prior council and prior councils helped to initiate and are finally ready to move forward. We've been working across jurisdictions with District of Columbia as well. So I'm glad that we're finally creating a structure to acknowledge and fund and assist grassroots community and business development for placemaking and marketing of some of these important communities. It's definitely long overdue. The seed money will go a long way to address the unique needs and challenges of various communities in the county, some that are on the verge of really taking off and some that have become stagnant and need to be revitalized and re-energized and that have tremendous opportunity but have not quite met the potential that they have. The council and the executive branch have been working closely together to ensure that we're supporting these efforts, whether they be main streets and bids and urban districts and other efforts. As we talk about an urbanizing county, we need to support urban environments with strong private sector and public-private coordinated efforts like this. It really is the work of county government, of the executive branch with the county council's support. I think MCEDC can be a partner in this, but really the executive branch needs to be leading the way with this. I just want to note specifically when we talk about the 500,000, we've been in conversations with various communities about funding for these purposes. And I always get concerned when we have an account that is identified for multiple sources and multiple functions. When I did college savings at the state level, we used to talk a lot about the difference between having a savings account or having a dedicated college savings account, a dedicated retirement savings account, and an emergency savings fund, because if you don't do that, you tend to double count the money, just psychologically. So some of this money has been targeted, my understanding, for the Friendship Heights Alliance bi-jurisdictional effort with the District of Columbia. It's well underway. There's been a commitment for $300,000 by the county executive quite some time ago, and DC's already appropriated their money. They've done their end of things. We have 60% of the businesses on our side of Western Avenue, but we haven't appropriated the money yet. Can't wait till February or March or April of the fiscal year. It needs to happen in July, and so I just wanted to get a sense of timing, since commitments have been made and efforts are underway. When do we think this program and the application process will be set up? How long do you think the turnaround time will be for the application process, and how will the grant process work for these purposes?
Thank you, Mr. Friedson, and thank you, Council President, for allowing me to participate from home. There is no such thing as a sick day anymore in 2022. Councilmember Friedson, in response to your questions, we are working very promptly to finalize the grant applications. We're basing the program largely on the successful program in the district that has supported both bids and Main Streets. They have established some fantastic criteria. They've had a lot of success in helping to launch more than 24 Main Streets. And we expect to have that process finalized over the next few weeks to be fully ready to engage on July 1. You are correct. There are organizations that we've heard from. We've heard from Friendship Heights. We've also heard from Long Branch, which wants to establish a Main Street. And there are other organizations we're aware of. The $800,000, the executive recommended $500 in the first budget submission. The amendment for an additional $300 comes as a recognition that even the $800,000 will be fully utilized. Just announcing this program has created additional interest from grassroots groups that want to organize to make their business districts better. And as appreciate the recognition. We have been working with a couple of groups over the years that are in our base budget. One is White Oak, Friends of White Oak, helping to with some placemaking and marketing there, and also the White Flint Downtown Committee, which is working on placemaking and marketing there. And we do feel this program will get off the ground very quickly. We feel that we'll be able to address some of the organizations that we know are out there. And we hope that its success carries it forward into the future, because we know, based on DC's example, that if this is success, it will breed more success. And I think we all want very successful business districts where the businesses themselves and the stakeholders are actively involved in improving and enhancing the experience of the community.
Appreciate the response. I'll also note Pike District Partnership. I mentioned Friendship Heights Alliance. I know you have been working very hard on that and have a lot of background with both of those communities, Mr. Hartman, which I appreciate. The recommendation really is $500,000. $300,000 we have to add to the reconciliation list, which is not recommended in the base budget. And I appreciate that you put that forward. I am concerned that there are a lot of commitments that have been made. This is a pot of money where that those commitments can be drawn from. But by virtue of including this into the budget, you've received more requests, which is great, but there's now not enough money to go around, as you've just noted. So I do believe the way that this is structured, there are some understandable concerns among some of the communities of whether or not the funding will be available in a timely manner and whether or not there'll be sufficient resources available, as has been discussed and as some commitments have been made. So, I want to note that I think it's very important that we add the $300,000 to the reconciliation list, and we do everything that we can to fund it because a lot of these commitments have been made. But I share some of the concern that several of the communities have raised with us of, how real the funding is and what the timeline that funding will be available. And so I just wanted to note that here and urge you, and I'm speaking specifically about Friendship Heights Alliance and Pike District Partnership. I know that there are a lot of other conversations taking place. Mr. Hartman noted Long Branch. There's obviously other, places around the county, including Wheaton, Silver Spring, and elsewhere that I know, have been mentioned. But when we make a commitment in county government, we have to fulfill that commitment. And saying that we're putting money in the budget for a specific purpose, but then telling a lot of folks that we're putting money for that purpose and then asking them to then compete for it, those are two different things. And so I just think we have to be really careful about the commitments that we're making and make darn sure that we are fulfilling and following through on those commitments. So I just wanted to note that here, but I do appreciate the work and the efforts and look forward to collaborating on that. And just be forewarned, I'm noting it here. I am intending to hold you accountable to that, and I'm sure my colleagues will as well. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Navarro, followed by Councilmember Juando.
Thank you. I very briefly just want to kind of introduce into the conversation here that I hope we also are mindful of aligning some of these efforts, right? We just made that decision to shift that funding, I believe it was $877,000 to the incubator in DA, and I think that was a very important funding. But when we start talking about, downtown Silver Spring, or we talk about Wheaton and other places, and about this discussion of placemaking and all of that, I hope that that we also connect the dots, because just like everything else in the county, with our small business community, we have obviously different needs. Some of them have their cultural, flavor and their alignment and things like that. And so just want to put that out there as a very important component. I appreciate so much the attention played also to Wheaton, because, we went through the Small Business Impact Assistance Program, which I think was very successful. Many of the businesses are still there. I mean, that is the best practice. We weren't sure that was going to happen. And then the pandemic hit and things got kind of slow. Now we're at a point where I think something like this will be really needed to realize the full potential of that project, including hopefully the retail space that is frustrating a lot of people that want to bid on that and find it that it's not been an easy process. And Mr. Wiseman, I'll put that on your radar again. But seriously, I do think that I just want to avoid us doing, again, a lot of stovepiping and piecemeal things, because there is quite a bit of opportunity out there. But other than that, I support the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Juando?
Yes, thank you. Appreciate the conversation. Really excited about the Main Street projects. Good to hear there's a lot of interest. I guess in the sense of it's a good problem to have, not really a problem, but we want to make sure we can meet that interest across the county. So just to confirm, the 500 is already in the base budget. The reconciliation amount would be the 300,000 for the Fenton Village Main Street in particular, right? Mr. Hartman, or staff?
Again, the information that was provided to council staff was not for a specific Main Street or specific corporation. It is a competitive grant process, and the 300,000 was added as an amendment based on community input following the executive's March 15th budget.
Got it. Okay, so it would just be adding to the 500,000 to make it an $800,000 program.
That is correct.
Got it. So that but realizing there's a lot of interest in, Fenton Village could be one of many that apply and be in the mix. Okay, I see you nodding.
Yeah, no, yes, I just don't, again, I can't speak for what executive staff have shared with any of our partners. What I can say is what they've shared with me when I was preparing the packet, which is it's a competitive grant process. They encourage all to apply. It will be based on that. And so I just don't want to predispose at any specific amount of money.
Yeah, any specific one.
Based on what has been presented to council staff. Thank you.
Got it. No, that makes sense. Thank you. So we've got a lot of interest, which is good. You talked about you looking at DC's program. So that's all positive. And I think, very needed. I'll speak briefly to the proposal that was suggested by Mr. Reamer. I think we're putting the cart before the horse here on the bid money. If the tax were levied that was been requested by the bid, I think 2.4%, that would have generated $800,000 or $900,000, which is in the ballpark of the $600,000 that you're recommending. So it seems to be a way around that, and to give money to an entity that's not compliant and has to reconstitute its leadership structure for them to spend before that new leadership structure, which again, the reason it's not compliant is because there was significant community pushback on how the bid was developed, and that it didn't reflect the many diverse businesses in the community. And I think that context is really important here. So I think it would not make sense, particularly in this tight budget, to allocate funding for a non-compliant, controversial entity that has to reconstitute. And it's going to be difficult to do that, but I think if you want to make it more difficult to reconstitute, you give money to a board that's not compliant, that was put together with controversy, and then they spend money and make decisions on marketing before it's reconstituted. It doesn't make practical sense. If the board gets to reconstitute before in the FY23 fiscal year, and that happens and they apply ahead of time, which I would encourage them to do, then we can come back with a supplemental potentially. But I think this is not a smart idea fiscally, and it's not a smart idea for the community input part of it as well. So I won't be supporting that motion, and I would urge colleagues not to, but I do support the $800,000 for the Main Street projects and look forward to having a strong, newly constituted Silver Spring bid compliant with state law and with full community input. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. So, Councilmember Rear, could you restate your motion, please?
Thank you. Well, the motion was to add the $300,000 from the second budget recommendation from the executive to the reconciliation list in 3 tranches of $100,000 for additional main streets, and then a $600,000 item for the bid in 3 tranches of $200,000. So it's $900,000 in tranches. And I will just say the bid money would not be provided without a contract. So the community issues that we want to see addressed in the leadership of the board and the programs that are offered, those need to be addressed through the contracting process. And we wouldn't just be providing the money directly to the bid. It's different. If the tax issue were the way we were pursuing, it would be more, without a contract. But as an appropriation, there's a contract behind it. So we will have confidence that the county executive will proceed and not only do the contract, but ensure that we're doing it in a way that faithfully executes the concerns that we have raised. So that's the proposal. And of course, the compliance issue, that the organization must be compliant. There isn't an alternative. It's compliant now, and exactly there's a future timeline for a different compliance, and they will comply with that as well.
Mr. President?
Yes, Councilmember Jawando.
I have a question. The motion can be made, but I have a question if there's no one else in the queue.
Okay. Let's just get through the motion really quick. So we got a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilmember Hucker. Go ahead, Councilmember Juando.
Thank you.
So he's got a question.
The contract, my understanding with the bid law is that there is no contract needed. Could Gene Smith or staff or answer that?
I mean, I'd need to look into that a little bit more. I mean, certainly to Mr. Rimmer's point, if the bid levied a tax that they asked for through a resolution and the council put that on its levy resolution as a pass-through tax, finance like it does for other pass-through entities would just provide that cash and the bid would use it based on its own board. Right. Given that this would be going on, given that Mr. Rimmer is recommending adding a general fund appropriation, it would need to be non-competitively contracted in order to implement that funding. We wouldn't just write a check to the bid through a general fund appropriation.
And then my second question would be, I would just appreciate, if it's the will of the body to do this, it's the will of the body. I still think the concerns, it will be perceived in a way that is not beneficial to the overall process. I would just ask if we could separate the votes. I would like to vote for the 300,000, and if you want to have a separate motion for the others and people want to vote for that, I just would like the opportunity to not vote for that.
Well,
so I'd ask the motion maker.
So you're requesting to make an amendment to Councilmember Reamer's motion as a friendly amendment. So there is a friendly amendment on the table. Is there a second for that friendly amendment? No. To separate it out.
Well, I don't think it's an amendment. I think it's just a request of colleagues that we do quite often. It's not really an amendment.
Okay.
Honestly, I don't really accept it because I don't think it's that friendly. And the Main Street idea was our idea. Right. And this is all part of a vision here. We wanted to create the bid and the Main Streets. So now we're adding the reconciliation funding as the Main Street funding and the bid. They're all tied together in our mind. So I know it would be a very courteous thing to do, but this was our vision of how to do this. So dividing it to allow you to vote against the piece that you favor and not for the piece that you don't, but this was how we envisioned it from the beginning.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of Councilmember Reamer's motion, please raise your hands. And that is Council Members Navarro, Friedson, Albornoz, Hucker, Reamer, and Katz. All those opposed? Councilmember Juando. So the motion passes.
I'd like to be recording an aye. Sorry about that, Mr. President.
Oh, hi. All right, great. So the motion, thank you. Great. What else? Anything else on this item?
No. And so that we're all clear, the items will go on the reconciliation list just as Mr. Reamer and Mr. Hucker moved and the council approved. Since the Silver Spring bid is a separate line item, it would just show up as a separate line item should the council vote that off the reconciliation list, and whatever amount is approved for the business development district grants will be its own line item. Because again, the business development district grants is a completely separate program from what Mr. Reamer is recommending. So I just want to be clear, there'll be two line items in the budget should it all be approved.
Okay. So, but there's no requirement for another motion. We are.
No. That was just a clarity.
Got it.
As we wrapped up. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. That moves us on to, we just have two more items on the agenda. Next is Universities of Shady Grove Ready Institute.
All right, this was a joint Fed EC. Is Dr. Kadamian still here? She's probably been here all day long. Oh, spent the whole day and then walked out at the moment that we needed her. Please join us in front, Dr. Kadamian. Thank you for adjusting your travel plans. I know that you had originally planned to be somewhere else today, but I would like to give Dr. Kadamian a chance to just share with us. I'll try to just tee this up here. The joint committees, EC, Fed, met to receive a proposal that we requested as part of a talent pipeline initiative. And in January 2019, the Fed and the EC committees met to talk about tech talent pipelines and talent pipelines generally. And we were wrestling with WorkSource Montgomery's program areas, Montgomery College, MCPS, USG, and we reviewed models. There is a spectacular program in New York that we talked through. It's called the Tech Talent Pipeline there. And we asked our organizations to meet and to work on ideas and bring us proposals. The pandemic delayed our moving forward on some of these things. But in the meantime, Dr. Ann Kadamian has been named the, forgive me, it's not executive director, it is executive director of the universities at Shady Grove. And she has grabbed the mantle of leadership and brought to us a marvelous idea for how the county can build USG into an even more powerful workforce economic development enterprise. And the core of it is for USG to have the ability to research and understand the changing job market in the county, the needs of our growing sectors, our most strategic sectors, and then be able to tailor certification programs and degrees. And this is the core of it. I'm sure some of you have heard about this, in New York, the university that Mayor Bloomberg brought Cornell to Roosevelt Island. It's called Applied Sciences, and it's all about allowing the educational institution to tailor degrees to the known needs of the private sector. And this is allowing USG to do a better job tailoring certificate and degree programs to the known needs of the private sector. So creating some resources to allow them to do that research and to build a partnership with Montgomery College and with MCPS. And this funding that we have recommended, the joint committees have recommended to the reconciliation list, is the first year. It's envisioned as a ramp up. So I believe it's in about $500,000, something. I'll ask Gene to explain, but we're trying to build a significant organization here, and Montgomery County hasn't had necessarily an operating contribution to USG, and we need the state to really think bigger about USG, and that's a critical long-term strategy for us as a county. We have USG because Montgomery County took the leadership decades ago to argue for it and to create an organization here. And now we have to, take it to the next level. But this institute will be a critical piece in our economic development platform or agenda and our workforce agenda. And so now I'd like to turn it to you, Dr. Kadamian, to please give us an overview. And then we have a joint committee, and Mr. Rice may wish to speak. I know he's engaged in some critical. He's on with us.
He is with us virtually, and Councilmember Navarro wanted to speak as well. So
fantastic.
Yep.
So we can have council members can share comments, and then we can go to Dr. Kadamian. So the joint committees recommended adding $475,000 to the reconciliation list. We trimmed that request. The Institute could have spent more and spent it faster, but we wanted to be as mindful as we could of the significant constraints in the reconciliation list this year. And so we thought we would, take it to that size in the hopes that would enable us to get it completed. So back to you, Mr. Council President.
Thank you. We've got Chair Rice, followed by Councilmember Navarro.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And this was really important. I apologize for not being there in person, but wanted to make sure that I jumped in for this conversation. When Councilmember Reamer and I asked Dr. Kadamian and USG to think bold and innovative, they did just that in creating this Ready Institute, and really is a way for us to combine our efforts when it comes to thinking about educational practices and how we connect so many of our folks to great career pathways that we know have not always traditionally been there. And this is something that I think, as you heard from Councilmember Reamer, is something that can be a model. It really is something that the state does need to embrace and does need to financially support in terms of continuing to make sure that we have opportunities for so many in our community to get connected to these great jobs that are also needed in our community for our future. And so from that standpoint, I just can't emphasize how important this is. We need to get this off of the reconciliation list. We need to move forward with this item and helping to start to create this collaboration between universities at Shady Grove, between Montgomery College, between MCPS, all coming together to brainstorm on how we can, again, continue to create these pathways for so many in our community. And so I really want to thank the partnership of Councilmember Reamer and everybody on the Education and Culture Committee, as well as Planning, Housing, Economic Development Committee, for their commitment in really moving this forward. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Navarro.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am very excited about this particular item. I think that as has been noted, and I feel this way very deeply, we are continually really closing the loop on a lot of things. This is one moment that feels that way. So I really do want to thank Councilmember Reamer Rice and obviously everyone, because we've all, really rolled up our sleeves to address this question mark around workforce development. And I shared the story of coming back from a meeting with the White House Commission under President Obama, and was sitting next to a gentleman from India. And when I asked him, he asked me what I was doing. I asked him what he was doing, and he said he's in the business of creating human capital. And he went to describe that basically he would go to different countries. Let's say Germany needed 2,000 dentists, come back to Delhi, and then immediately the universities would shift and create a curriculum that was fast-tracked and produce 2,000 dentists by X year. And it struck me because this need to align our industry needs with making sure that we have a pipeline, but also opening up the access to so many of our students. USG, just like Montgomery College, has such a diverse student population. And so really creating that and matching those two things helps us, really propels us, is turbocharge economic development in our county. So I love this idea. I, of course, want to make sure that it's not just about research and conversation, because what I really want to see are the actual initiatives that are going to produce these, wonderful members of our county that will be ready for these jobs. And the other thing I will also add is that, of course, with the pandemic, so many things have changed that I hope that you also take that into consideration as you do your research, because it would be very exciting. So thank you so much, Dr. Kademian, for everything that you are doing in leading us in this way.
Welcome, Dr. Kademian. Thank you so much. I've had the opportunity to meet with you on a separate project that we will be working on soon. And just fun fact, everyone, she is a former Division I athlete. So, Dr. Kademian, you've really hit the ground running, and we really appreciate your leadership. I join all of my colleagues' enthusiasm for this particular initiative, and I'll turn it over to you to make some comments.
Thank you all so much for your support for this initiative. I want to emphasize three things with this READY Institute. One is collaboration. This institute is to catalyze collaboration with our partners, Montgomery College, MCPS, MCEDC, WorkSource Montgomery. So none of this work can be done by any single institution. This is work that has to be interinstitutional, and we see the READY Institute as facilitating and catalyzing that collaboration. Secondly, I want to emphasize innovation. We see this as a way to think creatively and differently and out of the box around the challenges that we have to provide more opportunities to build those pathways, to think creatively about education in Montgomery County. And finally, most importantly, I want to emphasize equity. This is about really moving the needle on equity and really finding ways to provide more and more opportunities in the higher education space and the education space for our students who are underserved and who are eager and ready to make a big impact. And so those three words, I think, describe a lot of what we want to do with READY. And yes, it will be much more than research, although I think data will be the catalyst for the work that we all do together. And I think planning will be a big part of it as well, to be able to bring the data together to do the planning for the pathways and to identify the gaps and the possibilities. And the research will inform us, inform the innovation, how well we're doing, hit our metrics. I see this as a county-wide effort. So thank you all so much for your interest and support for this.
Terrific. So we have a joint committee recommendation. I'm sorry, Councilmember Friedson, my fault.
Yeah, I'll just quickly say, because everyone has talked about how excited they are about this, I said it in joint committee, I'm ready for ready. So I'll say it again here, but, resilient education for all, designed for you. I think the idea of having access for everybody, but targeted for specific industries and for specific people within those industries to make sure we're providing equity and access and opportunity for everybody is so important. And so I just wanted to highlight that. We're speaking as the acronym, but there's a lot of opportunity there. And I mentioned yesterday in our conversation about MCPS about this idea of taking this challenge that we have all gone through together, but using it as an opportunity to not do things the way we've always done them. Absolutely. And to build better systems, because we recognized during COVID that our systems in many ways have helped a lot of people, but they're also failing a lot of people too. And we have to be honest about that and do the test where you put the water and you see where the cracks are. And then we got to fill those cracks, and we got to figure out how we can lift everybody up. And I think this is an opportunity to do that, to create a cross-sector, pipeline, a continuum that we need to be doing in every area. And I'm just really excited to see this move forward and to watch how the different partners within this space are able to be convened and to break those silos and to be as good in Montgomery County as the sum of our parts. That's true economically. That's true with our workforce development and talent pipeline. That's true in our education system. We have amazing parts and amazing institutions. We need them to work better together. We've got all the ingredients. Let's make better soup. And I think we have an opportunity to do that. So I look forward to supporting this and appreciate it. Thank you, Ms. President.
Thank you. All right, we have a joint committee recommendation. All those in favor, please raise your hands. And that is unanimous among all those present and virtual. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
All right, that moves us on to the last item on the agenda, which is compensation and benefits follow-up.
Thank you. This is agenda item number 11. And I do also want to acknowledge Mr. Howard, who prepared a really great packet for us. We have here Dr. Stoddard. And these are some additional items that we needed to make decisions. So the Government Operations and Fiscal Policy Committee met on May 5th to review 3 FY23 compensation-related follow-up issues. And unanimously, we made the following recommendation. We decided to approve the executive's proposed FY23 budget amendment to provide a cumulative 6.5% general wage adjustment, GWA, to Police Leadership Service, also known as PLS, to those members, instead of the flat $4,000 $333 GWA included in the March 15th budget. And this action will align the PLS GWAs with that of FOP members and would add $435,468 to the reconciliation list. We also requested that the executive conduct a review of the PLS, the Police Leadership Service program, to determine whether it is meeting the intended goals, and if not, provide recommendations on needed adjustments for alternatives. This review should also look at the management structures of other public safety departments. 3, we approved a new FY23 legislative branch non-merit salary schedule, which we have been waiting for a while and then went back and forth, but finally it's here. But this was as proposed by council staff, and we thank council staff for that. Also, we approved the executive's proposed FY23 executive branch non-merit salary schedule, the new FY23 salary schedule for the Inspector General. Now, number 5 is a decision that we did defer because we wanted more information, and that was on the executive's proposed FY23 budget amendment to add $1 million to the compensation and benefits NDA to reflect projected additional personnel costs associated with adding a new official holiday, Juneteenth. Obviously, we are so excited that now we will be observing that holiday. We just needed a bit more information to understand exactly what the costs would be. And so that is the only item that we will need to address. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Mr. Howard, regarding that. But the other ones, there were 3-0, and of course you have more information in the packet. Mr. Howard.
Great. So I will address that question of the additional holiday expenditures, and that's on page 3 of the staff report under section C. So the executive's April 28th proposed budget amendment included adding $1 million to the compensation and benefits non-departmental account for costs related to adding the new holiday, which was the addition of Juneteenth as the new official holiday formally approved on March 15th. And because there's now a new holiday, there is additional personnel costs that are incurred on each holiday, as certain employees who are required to work do receive holiday pay in alignment with the different bargaining agreements and personnel regulations. And the fiscal impact statement indicated that these are a cost of about $1 million per holiday based on recent experiences. The executive's FY23 budget as submitted did not assume these additional expenditures, so they were not built into the budget, but they did indicate they will do so for FY24 and beyond. I just want to note that this recommended amendment has nothing to do with programming or services for Juneteenth. As part of the Office of Human Rights budget, you did approve $100,000 for Juneteenth programming and activities, and it also has the options that we'll discuss has no bearing on whether people will receive the holiday pay. People who have to work will receive the holiday pay no matter what the council's decision on this particular issue is. So the GO committee did discuss two options related to this executive amendment. The first was to approve it, which would add $1 million to the NDA for consideration as part of the reconciliation process. And the second one was an option that staff brought up, which was to not add $1 million to the NDA at this time, as it's possible that savings in personnel costs during FY23 via lapse, turnover, and other naturally occurring factors would be sufficient to cover any additional holiday costs. Instead, if that were not the case, the executive could always send over to the council a supplemental appropriation if needed, if additional appropriation authority is needed. The GO committee did ask for additional information about FY22 personnel costs, so I've provided that in the table here. And you can see that as of the second quarterly analysis, which is used to prepare the March 15th budget, we're projecting a surplus in personnel costs of about $6.3 million. So if the same thing were to occur in FY23, then there would be sufficient appropriation authority already existing in the budget to cover these additional costs, and there would not need to be an additional amendment made. I do want to note that oftentimes the departments in which these personnel costs occur are not the same as the departments within personnel cost savings occur, and that's usually handled through at the end of the year through the end of year transfer process. So with that, staff's recommendation would be that the council does not need to add the $1 million at this time, and can take this up if later in the fiscal year if the additional costs, if we don't have the personnel savings that may occur. Thank you.
Dr. Stoddard, do you have any comments or anything to share with us regarding that particular item?
I don't, with regard to the Juneteenth celebrations. Obviously, we know that there will be additional costs for the holiday, but as Mr. Howard suggested, we may be able to address those through internal savings, and we'll obviously come back to the council if we can't.
Great. So we have a committee recommendation and a staff recommendation. I personally agree with the staff recommendation. I think that would be appropriate, and if necessary, we would come back to it. That's how I'm feeling. The committee chair as well. Yep. Okay. So moved by Committee Chair Navarro as amended. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Friedson. No discussion, questions. All those in favor, please raise your hands. And that is unanimous among all those present and virtual. Great. So that, I believe, Mr. Howard, I want to make sure. Okay. We are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.